for the critics, my words are like physics, a force that they can't stop. They just don't get it, I think they forget I'm not done till I'm on top. I know I was born for this. I know I was born for this. I believe we can write our story.
Hey everybody, how's the day? How you doing? Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whatever time it is you're listening to the sound of our voice. Once again, it's Wise Leadership Solutions, words from the wise, and I'm coming back today with another guest from my career when I was in the military on active duty. This guy, man, it's going to be interesting to see if he remembers how far back we go. But I will tell you, he was somebody that I not only respected, admired, looked up to, and uh, work to get to know through a lot of my career. So without further ado, let me introduce Mr. Mike Kazbowski. What's up, Kaz?
What's up, buddy? How are you?
I'm good, bro. I'm good. Thank you for taking the time to come and join us here today, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. It's good to see you, man. And like you said, we've known each other for a long time.
Long time, man. So I don't know if you remember, but I will tell you, when I first found your name, it was 2008. Okay.
Mm,
Yeah. So, and I was at ATG San Diego at the time. I was a young DC chief, and you were a DC man as well, but we had never crossed paths. You
correct.
were in Japan, and I was in San Diego at the time, and I was just learning the Navy, right? I really didn't know what the Navy really was doing, right? I didn't understand. Like I remember when I made chief, my chief was like, "Oh, you'll make it when it's your turn. Like you got to wait longer."
Yeah.
Right? I didn't know what that meant even. So as a DC1, I make chief, and then I go to ATG, and my senior chief was like, "Gary, there's plenty of guys out there that are doing good things, right?" And so I learned I can go on NPC and I can pull down all the results for everyone that makes rank, right?
Sure.
And so I data mine. I pulled down like all the Master Chief results and I backdated who made Master Chief first time. I pulled down all the Senior Chief results, who made Senior Chief first time. And then I had a very small list of people that I was like, what are they doing? Like, what are those people doing to make rank so fast? Because I'm riding all these ships and I'm meeting all these DCCs, and a lot of them are saying the same things that I'm saying. Like, no one knows what the hell to do, right? Everyone's asking, like, what do I do? And you were on the list of guys that had made Senior Chief like first time up. And so I had messaged you like an email, and I was like, "Hey man, I'm Gary. Don't know if you know me or not." And I think you were at ATG Westpac at the time, at Sasebo or
Yeah, I
something
just
like
left the USS Gary in 2008. In 2008, I did the Gary McCampbell Hull swap, and then after that tour, I went down to ATG Sasebo. That's correct.
that. And you made Senior Chief there, right? Is that where
I
you made
made
Senior
senior
Chief?
chief on the Gary. Correct. Yeah.
Right. And so you were going into the Command Senior Chief program, and not everyone knew that, but that was my plan. Like not Command Senior Chief, but I wanted to be a Command Master Chief, right? Because uh, being a DC man was not my favorite. It was my passion, right? I joined the Navy undesignated. I love being an engineer, but when I chose to not go officer through initiation, it's because I bought into the mess. Like I was like, I believe in this Chiefs mess thing, and I believe that I want the command to be the best it can be for the sailors. And my path to getting there was I got to make Master Chief first. And so, how do you do that as a DC man, right? And I had never even met a DC Master Chief at that point in my career.
Mm.
Not even met one, right? There was like none in San Diego, it felt like. They were all like in Norfolk or something,
Like
right? We
unicorns, man.
right? I mean, it was. I remember when Dave Singer made Master Chief in Japan, and everyone in the fleet was like, "How did that guy make Master Chief? Who is he?" Because like, just because you don't know him, bro, doesn't mean he's not solid, dog. Like when when I left the GW and I went to Norfolk, I swear to God, like every DC man in Norfolk had to come meet me because they all wanted to know who was this guy that dares to make Master Chief out of Japan, right? And and I had to stand up for that, right? I had to stand on that business and like represent Seventh Fleet and be like, yeah, Norfolk, what's up? We can
Yeah.
have the conversation. What do you want to talk? Want to talk DC? You want to talk Chief? What do you want to do? So anyway, I email you, and from the jump, bro, you were solid. You were like, hey man, appreciate the information. Here's what I did. Here's what I'm doing. Stay close. Let's talk. And that began a mentorship that would run from, we never even met in person the first time until like 28, 17, right? So for 5 years, it was messaging, email, just connecting, right? Whether it was social media,
Sure.
whatever it was. And I remember the year I made Master Chief, you had sat the board, right? And I was on George Washington, gone through a hell of a tour, wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my career, had just gone through a lot with my captain and all kinds of, and I make Master Chief, right? And I remember
Yeah.
coming back from the board and you're like, hey, bro, let's meet up and talk at the Chiefs Club. And I didn't want to. I didn't want to because I was like, I don't want people to think that I'm like, me and this dude are super connected. And I made Master Chief because Cass is my boy, right? I was like, I want people to think I made Master Chief because of all the damn work I did and how hard it was. And so I passed up on that opportunity to meet you then because I was insecure, right? I'm like, I'm not
Sure.
sure that I want to be like, I don't want people to think, oh, we connected as soon as he got back from the board. Yeah. And two of us made 9 that year out of Yoko, right? It was me and James. We both made Master Chief that year. And so then when I came back to Japan as a CMC, and I'll never forget, and one other thing before we jump into this, when I went CMC, I remember you hit me up and you were like, damn, bro, I wish you would have waited longer to go Master CMC. And I was like, dog, you don't know, like, I can't go back as a DC man. Like, I won't make it. It's too hard. Like, I did it on a carrier. It almost killed me, right? Like, tough job. And then we connected again later. So, bro, thank you for always being willing to talk shop, to talk leadership, to talk mentorship, to talk the stuff that me as a DC man, me as a surface sailor, the things that I resonate with, right? Because we're different than aviation. We're different than submarine force. And I believe that truthfully. And I love my community. And you're the kind of person that people like me respect because you got to be real, right? And
Yeah.
and unfortunately, when you're real, not everyone's gonna like you, bro. It's just how it
That's
goes.
a very true statement. Yeah, that's a whole conversation in itself. I would
We'll
say
get
even
into it.
especially to now, in today's Navy. But one thing you said that is absolutely true is your record. I remember on the board spoke for itself, and so did James. So it wasn't. It is extremely hard having sat 9 selection boards in the Navy to hook somebody up. It's damn near impossible because there's so many other master chiefs and command master chiefs and commanders and captains that sit these boards. The good thing for you and James, which I do remember, is your record spoke for itself. And so it's hard not to select people whose record
Yeah.
speaks for itself. And so, and then to your second point, I do remember you emailing me and saying, hey, I just made Mass Chief. I think I'm going to CMC program. I remember that. And I was like, no, you're not. I said, listen, man, you were selected to be a damage control Mass Chief. We need good DC men in the Navy.
Yeah.
And having been a former DC man, you know, I maybe I should have taken my own advice, but I think the times in 2010 were a lot different. When I got selected, I made, Mass Chief in 2010 on the USS Patriot in my first Command Senior Chief tour. So I was never a DC Master Chief at sea on a carrier. You were, and I was thinking, man, this guy's going to go run the schoolhouse. This guy's going to go do another carrier. He's got all this expertise. He's well respected. And then you went ahead and put a Command Master Chief package in. I'm like, damn, we just selected this guy. I mean, no kidding. As soon as you were selected, you immediately put a package in that year
Yep.
and then selected. So part of me is like, man, we just lost a really good DC man. Then the other part of me was like, but the Command Master Chief community just gained a phenomenal Command Master Chief. So it was twofold, right? But
Yep.
all the
No, I get it.
pictures and you going through inspections and all the hard tours you did, your record spoke for itself. The board got it right.
No, I remember, and trust me, I get it, bro. I went through it. Like I remember I got to Norfolk as a Master Chief, and I was like, I don't gotta go CMC. Like, but I had no desire to be a 3MC, right? And back in those days, they weren't really giving Master Chiefs the job, right?
Yeah.
You were having to there because there was a lot of young guys like me that were trying to get the job. And it's funny when I got the George Washington, I was going there as a chief, and there was a guy named Miller who was a DC Master Chief from Norfolk who had the 9 job. He even called me up. He's like, Gary, I'm going to be the Master Chief, but you're going to run everything. I got it. And I'm young and hungry. I'm like, all I need, bro, is you to play the line, dog. I got you. I'll do it all, right? But then the dude doesn't pass overseas screening,
Yeah.
right? And so I get there, and he's not coming. And the chief engineer, I'm there like 2 weeks, and they tell me he fails overseas screening. And the chief engineer is like, well, chief, we're going to get another master chief for another rate. We're going to put him in DC. I was like, whoa. Oh, sir, let's wait for the senior chief results. And if I mess around and make senior chief, why don't you go ahead and put me in that 9 billet and get me a chief? Because I don't need a boss. I need help. I need
Yeah.
someone that's going to help me chop wood, right, and get after it. And sure enough, that's what happened, right? And I remember I was so ticked off because I wanted that incentive pay to be a DCCM on an aircraft carrier, and they wouldn't let me have it because I was a senior chief that wasn't paid. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay, hold on. I'm about to do this, and I don't get the same benefit. Okay, roger that. Moving on. Anyway, we could have this conversation all day,
Yeah.
right? We
Yeah.
could go, but I want to talk about you, Mike. So
Sure.
first off, you're in Chicago right now. You're on travel with your boss, and were you born and raised in Chicago?
I was, yeah. I was born in Mount Prospect, Illinois, which is the northwest suburbs, and spent 18 years here. Went to school, graduated June 4th of 1995, and June 7th of 1995, I'm standing at attention at Great Lakes. 3 days after I graduated.
So did you just growing up? First of all, what do you remember about Chicago growing up, right? Because Chicago's got a lot of publicity right now, and it's
Yeah.
not always good. They've always been a big city. They've always had history, right? But it also is a city with a lot of character, bro. You've got the White Sox, you got the Cubs, you got the Bears, you've got you've got this heritage of Chicago that's so much more than just the narrative right now of the bad things. How was it for you as a kid growing up in that area, in that community, man?
Yeah, and I think back at that time, Chicago has always been a melting pot of people, right? I mean, when you look back in the history of Chicago, the people that came here, they came from boats, they came from overseas, and being in the Midwest, it was just a melting pot for everyone, all ethnic groups, all backgrounds, all races, all religion. Growing up, you know, there was segregation per se. There were certain cities that were more Italians, there were more Caucasians, there were more Spanish, there were more African Americans. But I will tell you, everyone got along. Even in high school, there was segregation per se in the mess decks, in the cafeteria,
Yeah,
but everyone kind of got along.
yeah,
Chicago has had a bad rap for the last 10, 15 years for a lot of different reasons. And
yeah,
crazy thing it is it's still a melting pot, right? But crime in this state is out of control. And, you know, being apolitical, a lot has to do with who the governor is, who the mayor is. We've had governors that are in jail. When you go back in the history of time, Mayor Daley and his grandfather that was the mayor and his father, like there was a history, and Daley was a really good mayor. And then after him, it just started getting a little bit worse, worse, worse. Chicago has been problems for many, many years.
yeah,
But everyone wants to come here because, you can go downtown and go to Little China. You can go to the Polish section. You can go to the Italian section. You can go to the Spanish section. Downtown still has all this history, and it's really interesting and really good. The problem is there's a lot of crime, but there's a lot of crime in a lot of different states too. The reason why Chicago gets probably a lot of attention is because every year we tend to in Chicago have the highest murder capital per rate, and that gets and they had projects years ago. Cabrini Green was a famous project that nobody dared to go to. They tore that down years ago. Now it's a beautiful subdivision. It just takes time, and it's unfortunate because Chicago is a beautiful city. It's a beautiful skyline, Michigan Avenue, Lakeshore Drive, all the history of Chicago, the Great Fire in Chicago. The problem is it's overrun by the crime, and I don't know how they're going to fix it, if they're ever going to fix it. Um, we live
I
in a
think it's
different
coming.
world today than we did a long time ago.
Yeah. No, I think it's coming, man. I think the world is going through a renaissance of sorts. And I was in a business meeting yesterday, and me and my partners were talking about how we're going to approach a big bid that we're making for a large organization to help them with their leadership development, right? And one of my partners came in like, no, we need to go straight high technology, get it done as fast as possible, leveraging AI. And my other partner was like, no, you got it exactly wrong. Like, we believe that that's actually going the wrong direction when it comes to people. We need to use that part of the process to collect data. But when it comes to the people, we need to slow that down and give attention to the details and talk to the people, because we believe that people are recognizing that they're missing that connection,
Sure.
right? And that the people are reawakening to, yes, it's great to get information quick, but I also want to connect. And that's why you see a lot of people turning to faith, people turning to crime stoppers, if you will, right? I remember in the 90s, and the Cops was like the main show on TV because
Oh
everybody
yeah.
wanted to watch the good guys stop the bad guys, right? And I think it's coming back around again, where people are kind of getting tired of not feeling safe going to eat with your family, right? And I think crime's always been a thing. I talk to my students about that. I say, mass shootings are not a new thing, right? Unfortunately, you look at the Wild West, people have no idea how bloody it was as
Sure.
this continent was getting settled, right? Like, it was bloody. Like, there was brutality. I mean, you look at the Wyatt Earp days and the cowboys that were wearing those red sashes, right?
Oh
And they were,
yeah.
you bring 10 of your guys, I'll get 10 of my guys. We'll shoot it out in the OK Corral, bro. It was that, right? So the difference is evil is always going to be there. It's how do we respond to the evil? And then, of course, technology changes everything because everybody like makes it super loud. So I'm praying for Chicago. I think they're going to be okay. I hope it takes a turn because I know that the country, Chicago is a direct reflection of the country, right? It just is. And so if they can take a turn, then that means the country itself, the whole boat is starting to take a turn, right? It's an indicator.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree at all. Like it's just interesting how much politics play into everything going on right now. And I do my best is still active duty to be apolitical, but it's just interesting what you see on the left, what you see on the right, which news channel you watch, and then what people are saying. But my heart goes out to the people that are getting, you know, broken into or stolen or raped or murdered for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah,
Crime is out of control, I think, worldwide. And
it
it's
really is.
it is. And just a couple of days ago down on Michigan Avenue, a bunch of people ran into a Macy's or a Nordstrom and took thousands of dollars of stuff. And now you have police and other people that are just, and I don't want to speak on behalf of the police, but they just let them walk out because there's more of them than there are the police, and it's just it's unfortunate. You'd like to go walk downtown Chicago by the river, by Navy Pier, see the
Yeah,
skyline at night, but then you got to always look over your shoulder, like, why is this person following me? It's an uncomfortable feeling.
it is. And it takes a special again, service industries, right? So when I think service, I think military, I think law enforcement, I think fire, I think emergency responders. And when you're ever broke, damaged, in need of help, you want them to come running and you want them to do a good job, right? And it's heartbreaking when these people that are in it, not for the money, right? People always talk to me about how much I'm worth, bro. It's incredible when people are like, Gary, why did you spend so much time in the military? You could, your story, your like, it's real, Mike. It's crazy, bro. What's out here in the world? It
Yeah,
really is. And I'm like, y'all gotta understand. I wasn't in it for the money. Like, I love the cause. I was a righteous warrior. Like, I was
yeah,
serving my country and my generation, our generation, from the mid 90s till the late 2000s, but we was in it for the whole damn shebang, right? But
yeah, no doubt.
especially once the war on terror hit, it was game over. Like, I went to Iraq, I went 3 different times, right? And I took Marines to Iraq each time and came back with less Marines each time. And we did our job, we played our position, and I served with people that were freaking heroes. And then, of course, the Navy never stopped operating, right? Everybody else gets those slowdown periods, they get those decompression periods. Not I, says the United States Navy,
Yeah.
especially not in the 7th Fleet Theater of Operations, because as soon as we get underway, we are right in our opposition's backyard, right? And we are unfortunately always reacting to their freaking saber rattling. And but we choose that life because a lot of us don't know any different and it's comfortable for us.
Yeah, no
I,
doubt.
we like the op tempo, right? When I did my San Diego time, I was going nuts. I was going nuts, bro, because I was like, everybody complains like this is hard, but where everyone's getting off at 2:30 every day because they got to beat traffic, right? When I was in Japan, that was never a conversation because, of course, traffic was not our main priority. You
Yeah.
could beat a Hario in 25 minutes almost every day. You could walk the Dragon Bell housing 15 minutes. So we could work till 1800 every day, bro. It don't matter,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And then you have
And
the
so,
public transportation that's just phenomenal in Japan.
yeah, that was never the problem, right? Our problem was we might get underway tomorrow, right? We might get underway soon. I've never finished an availability that was delayed, right? It was almost always early or damn near on time because SRF would not allow it to go another way because their workers and their conviction to the program was you go to Hawaii and it's like, bro, can y'all help move the boxes faster, dog? Like, we didn't have those challenges in Japan because it was 100% military. We didn't
Right.
have stevedores, right? It was just us doing the thing. I look at the different things out there in the world and I tell my students, like, if you want to live a life of service, don't do it for the money, do it for the community, do it for the pride, do it for the right reasons, because you're going to always be unfulfilled if you thought you were just going to get a good paycheck,
No
right?
doubt. Yeah.
It's just you're never going to find what you're looking for. I said, but on the reverse, I want to inspire you to want to serve, become a teacher, become a person that cares, get into the clergy or the ministry, help people find things that make life better because some people will never find those millions, but it's pretty easy to become a firefighter. It's pretty easy to become a cop. And you can have a damn good career as a law enforcement officer. But then I feel bad for those guys when they try to do their job and then the people that break the rules, nothing happens. Or they don't get held accountable. And then they become like, all right, then why am I going to put myself in the position to do something when that's not really going to change? So I think that, again, I think a renaissance is coming. I'm loving right now what I'm seeing with Cash Patel. Again, do you know when I retired from the Navy? I literally went almost a year without watching any news, bro,
Oh,
because
really?
I was like, well, because Kaz, when you see behind the curtain how much money is really moving in the world, right? I remember when I was up at 7th Fleet and we had millions of dollars for travel budget, just millions. And I remember the chief of staff just swacking everyone's travel budget. Like, we're not doing that no more. Boom. And all of a sudden, all the fun trips were gone because guys were just going on willy nilly trips all over the place to go talk to people about things, right? And he swacked it. And I remember finding out how much money was available and then being like, hey, CMC, this is your travel budget. Do you want to go anywhere? I'm like, no, I got a wife and 2 kids, bro. I don't want to go nowhere. Like, why would I travel just to travel? No, I've got virtual, we've got phone calls. Like, if I'm going to go somewhere, I want it to matter and be part of a mission critical thing, not just to do something that really doesn't make sense. And then I found how much money was out there. I was like, bro, no wonder we're broke as a country. We've just got buku bucks, and that was on the heels of the whole Fat Leonard thing. And I mean, again, having lived through that part of Japan where I was on the GW when we were doing that, we were going to the ports that unfortunately I found out were backroom dealed for us to go there for people to get creative, right? And it's just the world that we live in. So I left it all alone for like a year, bro, because I was so cooked. I was cooked, man.
Yeah.
I was.
Yeah, no doubt. It's and then go fall into COVID, right? And we learned very quickly in COVID that we don't need to travel as much. We can do a lot of stuff online.
Facts.
Coming out of COVID now, it's interesting to see how many people in the military, and civilians probably too. All of a sudden, we're coming out of COVID, and it's like, I gotta travel now. I gotta travel now. I can't do this Teams or this Skype thing. Well, hold on a second, man. Like for the last 3 years, we've been doing that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's interesting how the world took a huge spin, but there was a lot of money for travel back in the days, and I just hope people went on travel for the right reasons. But you and I both know that they're it is what it is. Let's just say it like that.
Yeah, it is what it is, right? And I'm not, 100%. All right, so when you joined the Navy, what was it about you in high school where you were just like, I'm going to leave right as soon as I freaking graduate? Because you said it, graduate on this day, I'm at boot camp on this day. Why did you know like the Navy was going to be your thing?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I get that question quite a bit, actually. And so when I look back in retrospect of my time, I did not do well in high school. Not that I was a problem kid. I didn't want to study. Like, I had C's and D's, to be open and transparent with you, man. Like, studying wasn't my thing. I worked at a grocery store here in Chicago called Dominic's and Jewel. They're still around to this day. Since I was 15 years old, making like $3.46 an hour. So 15, 16, 17, 18, I was working at a grocery store as a bagger. And I knew for a fact when I was about junior in high school that college is not for me. My brother went off, he was older than me, went to college. And I was just like, I'm not studying. Like this, I didn't even like high school. Like it didn't catch me, it wasn't my thing. And so I was thinking, well, what am I going to do? And then my mom's like, you got to do something or you ain't staying here. Like you either get a full-time job or go join the military. My dad served in the Coast Guard. My dad was in the Coast Guard for like 37 years. And he was in the reserves, but he was also active duty. And he was in the Iraq War. And so I went to a couple of recruiters and talking to them. And, back in those days in the mid-90s, it was, yeah, come on, you can, the famous, when I saw the Navy, sit down and watch the Navy SEAL video. I didn't want to be a Navy SEAL. Like, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was like, that ain't for me. So as I got bounced around a little different recruiters, I went to the Navy. And I remember my recruiter, he was actually pretty good. And they sat me down, took the pre-ASVAB test, did okay on that. And then he says, what do you want to do in the Navy? I said, I don't know. He's like, well, you got to come up with something. Here's what you qualified for. And I qualified for like damage control, hull technician, a whole bunch of these rates. I'm like, I could be a firefighter? That sounds cool. So, and then, it was interesting. I graduated and I was like, why wait? Let's just get this adventure going right now. And so I did. Interesting. There's only 3 people from my graduating class that joined the military. I'm still the only one in the service, which, next year I retire, but the other 2 left very quickly. One was in the Army, one's in the Marines. You're talking of a graduating class of over 1,000.
Yeah. And
so at the time I was like, let's just get this thing going. Hindsight being 2020, I think it was a really good decision for me. Because I just hit 30 years of service and I'm 48 years old. And while other people were smoking weed, drinking, spent that, before going to college summer break, I didn't. I went right into the military. Do I wish I would have had a break? I don't know. I don't know if the break would have been good or bad for me. But at the end, they said, hey, we can get you in this date. And I was like, well, let's go. Yeah. And the rest is history. It was June of 1995, and I remember it because it was one of the hottest recorded summers in Great Lakes and in Chicago. And I remember that like every 20 minutes we had to dump the green CBR canteen on our heads because it was so hot. And coming back to boot camp this week as we, sponsored a division, Great Lakes, while it looks the same, is totally different than when you and I went to boot camp. It's completely different. And so, man, things have changed. And I think a lot for the better. Joined the Navy, got out of boot camp. And then I went to this thing called BEC, Basic Enlisted Engineering Common Corps, where they sat for me for like 6-7 weeks on the NTC side, where I learned basic engineering. And then I went to Damage Control A School, which is long closed by now, in San Francisco and Treasure Island. Yeah. And I was the second to the last class to graduate before they shut Treasure Island down. And then when it was time to pick orders, I almost picked orders to Guam, actually. It was the Frank Cable. And then I remember calling my mom back in 1995 after almost graduating DCA school, and I was like, "Mom, where's Guam at? I don't even know where Guam's at," you know. And she's like, "Oh, you're so far away, and there's a lot of bugs, and come closer to America. Can't you go to like San Diego or something?" Sure, let me take a look. And then I saw Japan, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm not going back to Chicago. I don't want to." I joined the Navy to go try an adventure,
Yeah.
and I went to my first ship, USS O'Brien, DD 975, and so it was January 7th, 1996, when I checked on board that ship, and I'll never forget it. I'll never forget this. It was a Friday. I was in my whites. Back in those days, you were allowed to travel overseas in a uniform. And so I took my whites from California. Back in those days, you were able to smoke in the back of the plane too. Man, we've come a
Yeah.
long way.
Yeah.
And so I get up there, I show up to TPU, where the bus dropped you off. I'm by myself for like 30 minutes. Some chief comes up to me and says, "Who are you?" My name is, Fireman Recruit Kazabowski. "What ship are you going to? What command?" "O'Brien." Next thing you know, there's an NC-1 there in a government van. They take me to the ship, my sea bag. They put me in supply berthing. Not even engineering berthing. It was a middle rack in supply berthing. And so it was late at night. I kind of get settled, whatever that was. I'm in my rack, a little nervous, first time on a ship. Don't even know where to navigate. Don't know how to get to the mess decks. They just threw me in a rack. It was late at night. And I'll never forget, I heard a bunch of supply guys, "Where's that new kid at? Let's go get that new kid." And I was like shaking. I was like, "You got to be kidding me. No way." And so they didn't get me. They picked me up the next morning. The rest is history. You mentioned something earlier, Dave Singer. Dave Singer was my first chief in the United States Navy.
Very
So
cool.
yeah, we're now retired Master Chief Dave Singer. DCC Dave Singer was my first chief in the Navy, and he was a tough cookie.
Yeah.
I learned a lot from Dave. I could talk a lot about Dave, but he was tough and interesting. And then the rest is history. And then I remember going through INSERV. It was the first inspection we went through. Back in those days, we had OBAs, and you remember guide rods, and
I do.
those things are so hard to change out. And you just did what you were told. I sweep, yeah, aye. You didn't look at the chief. You listened to the first class, and you swept until you were told not to sweep anymore. It ain't like that anymore.
What's funny is I've actually got an OBA in my classroom because they shut down an ROTC unit, and my officer went down there, and they had an old EBD, a Scott EBD. They had
Oh,
an
wow.
OBA, right? They had a MCU2 Papa gas mask. So he brought them all back for me, and I was like, "All right, so for nostalgia's sake, I'll keep these around." But you don't know the trauma that I got around these damn things. You don't know how many times I remember falling in ballast tanks because I'm on an OBA on air, because we're inspecting freaking smoke in a ballast tank because some Japanese dudes at the bottom of the tank welding without a hot work shit, right? And
Yeah.
so they were just the worst things in the world for us to rely upon for fire, fighting. Hey, real quick, I want to go back to Treasure Island. Here you are, this young guy out of Chicago. You're in San Francisco, Treasure Island, with dudes in A school, right? Which you're all young, you all got paychecks, you're all going through this cool damage control school, and you're sailors now. Did y'all go out and get some liberty?
Interesting. In 1996, or 95, excuse me, after graduating boot camp, I think I graduated around December of 1995. But for 2 months, I was at Treasure Island. That was my first experience at Fleet Week.
Ooh, that's a good
Yeah,
time to be there.
it was, and it was interesting. So they had to. The sailors were asked to go do a parade and stuff like that. They took volunteers. So me and a couple of buddies rose our hand. And I remember going by Pier 39 in Treasure Island, on San Francisco, Pier 39, the wharfs. And everyone, I was so underage at the time. I was only 18, 19 years old, just giving us alcohol and drinking. It was so awesome. But it was an experience in those days. It was like, wow, people really respected the military. And everyone wanted to say thank you for your service and this and that. And then everyone wanted to get to know you and stuff like that. It was very interesting. But again, the times were a lot different back then too, right? So
Yeah, for sure.
just what we got away with back then, you're probably not going to get away with now. But it was
Wow.
very interesting. And then being on Treasure Island, which has a unique history in itself, right? And so that was very interesting. Very interesting.
I can only imagine, right? 'Cause some of my best liberty I ever got was as a young sailor at some little hit of a school for like 2 or 3 days, and you just kind of get with the guys or gals from your class and be like, hey, let's go out tonight. And then next thing you know, it's like 4 in the morning. You're like, oh my God, we got to get back to the building. Like
Yeah.
people want to talk about resilience. Resilience is getting back to the shit before freaking reveille and being in line for quarters in the morning and still working all day and not complaining about it, right? And
Yeah, I
getting the
know
job done.
we did that all the time. And then when I got to Japan and got things situated, and everyone took me out. I have plenty of stories of
Yeah.
going on a Friday night, going up to Roppongi in Tokyo, catching that
Yep.
first train back, uh, and as long as you were there for muster,
That's
and
it.
you used to work hard, play hard, and
And,
if you smelled like alcohol or you looked like you had a rough night, a chief maybe worked you a little bit harder,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
then you got through it, and then you went on. If
And
you didn't
truly,
show up, you were hammered too. But
and Cass, that is, I believe, part of what makes the United States Navy so damn strong, at least at a space. I tell my students all the time, like, look, you got to remember, the United States Navy was formed by pirates, in my personal opinion, because the Caribbean was where a hotbed of action, right? First of all, the United States is in an insurgency against freaking England to declare themselves free, and they need a navy. Well, guess who's on the piers? A bunch of dudes that will, you give them a minute, they'll go down and plunder, and they'll be
yeah,
right back, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Those days, they would just pay. You watch the movie Pirates of the Caribbean. Jack Sparrow goes in the bar, like, I'm hiring, boom, and people start signing up to go for the ride, right? And so these pirates just chose to fight for a cause. And then when they got disbanded after they shut the Navy down, guess what? They probably went back to plundering again down in Cuba and crap, because what else are they going to do? Then they hire them back again to go do the 6 frigates and go do the thing. So they've always had an independent streak that you need to go over the horizon on a ship, right? Let's just be
yeah.
honest. You're not, a normal person does not go out in the middle of the ocean and just hope it works out, right? No, there's got to be some craziness in there a little bit to take on that challenge. And I read an article about 3 months ago, and it said, "Where did all the sailors go?" That was the title of the article. And it
Hmm.
hooked me because that's where did all the sailors go. And they talk about all the haunts that were the Navy's haunts, Sailor Town and Sasebo, uh, the Haunch in Yokosuka, the Trophy Lounge in San
San
Diego,
Diego.
all these different spots that were known for sailor hotbed, that were known for having a lot of people. And the article says they're still there. The sailors quit coming. The sailors quit coming. And it's because, like you and I both know, because we got to this world where it was like you couldn't step out of line a little bit, because if they would hammer you. Because if they didn't hammer you, then they would get hammered, because you're not being consistent. You're not holding the line. You've got to hammer and we forget that our name. I want people that are so that are so tough, they can go out drinking the night before and get up the next day and fight a fire. That's what I want. I want them dudes. I want those guys. I want those people that are not afraid to go out the night. And I'm not saying become freaking dead because you drank some. I've seen that, right? I seen a DC2 one time. We pulled into Thailand. We pulled into Thailand. This guy was back on the ship by like 8 o'clock at night with blood alcohol poisoning, right? Like he was cooked. They brought him back to the boat. He was like in medical with IVs stuck in him. Bro, 6 hours later, you're done. Like
Yeah.
doing the most. You've got to have older guys that'll watch out for you and take care of you and all those things. But guess what? He lived. He didn't die. He came through it. We all gave him crap. He went to mass for freaking being belligerent out in town and all that. I think he even retired as a DC2, right? I think he even got to 20 as a DC2, and there
Generational though, isn't it? It's
there was
generational.
something to be said for those kinds of guys. Because the thing about that DC2, I don't want to say his name because well, Seidel, screw it. He's out there. If you listen to Seidel, I still remember you, bro. And the thing about Seidel, he was strong as an ox, bro. He wasn't a Muscle and Fitness magazine cover model. He wasn't what you would have pictured as the epitome of a sailor, but bet you money he would drag you out of a space if you were hurt. Bet you he'd come get you. Bet you he would come help you carry that hose up the ladder well to do the maintenance, right?
Yeah.
Those are the sailors that I want to serve, that I want to be, that I wanted to be with, right? When people started worrying about the creases on their on their utilities and all that, like I, I I appreciate it. I do. It takes a lot of commitment to be that guy, but can you put the same level of commitment into learning your craft? Can you put the same level of commitment into learning why the maintenance is wrong or right? Can you put the same level of commitment into fixing the equipment and learning how to troubleshoot it and not just, well, let's put a job in for it, you know? And so when I look back on that time period when we joined, that's how it was. But we
Yeah.
also didn't have technology like we have now, right? Dude, I remember grease pencil maintenance boards, right? Remember that crap? The work
Yes.
to write it all out on the damn grease pencil on the board. It was a lot different. So, Kaz, when you got to that first ship in Japan, your first was it 3 years you were on that ship, or did you do
3
4?
years, 95 to 98.
So you did 3 years. You didn't do the extension for another year. You did 3 years.
No, I had a 4-year contract. So um, I, I left as a DC2, and I was like, I don't know what I want to do with my life anymore. You know, I think everyone back in those days had that point. Well, am I going to
Yeah.
get out, or am I going to stay in? But I kind of like being a DC man, and I made some mistakes, and I had some trials and tribulations like everybody else did. But I really enjoyed being a DC man, and then I really enjoyed being in Japan, and so um, I said, let me see. And detailing back in those days was so different than it is now. So that's a whole, you could hours worth of talking about the
Hours, bro.
difference.
It's crazy.
It is. So
Yeah.
they're like, hey man, we got orders to the USS Cushing, another DD, and I was like, in Japan, same platform, pretty good at what I'm doing, and I did, and I took it, and then the rest kind of history. I re-enlisted and re-enlisted and re-enlisted, but yeah, I
So
went
you
from the
did.
O'Brien to the Cushing.
So you went back to back DD and then to O'Brien from Cushing. God, you know what I love about that, but I hate about that, right? I'm gonna tell you what I love and what I hate about that. I love that you had expertise on the platform, and so you were an asset the minute you walked on board the ship, right? As a chief, God, nothing better than a second class who knows their stuff, right? Especially on a similar platform. Like I believe the Navy should look at making platform being an NEC vice other crap, right? Like if you're a good DDG guy, keep that dude on DDGs because I've seen people be DDGs their whole career that put like on a carrier, and just the management problem is a whole different mindset, right? Vice, and then the maintenance piece of it. Because look, on a DDG, you really got to do more with less, right? On the carrier, you got to do more with more. And it's almost they're just different problems.
Sure.
And so I felt, especially rates like damage control, where you could just go to any platform depending upon what happens with orders, right? I mean, I was a
Yeah.
Gator guy. I'm an amphib guy. So there's differences on an amphib when it comes to like ballasting, dealing with all of those things than you would have if you were only like a cruiser or a DDG guy in particular, or a frigate guy, or an LCS guy, or a whatever. And so I could see you walking on board immediately, having immediate knowledge and immediate ability. Growing up in 7th Fleet, I saw people do that, right? They go back to back to back C, but that's it's hard work keeping the edge up, right? Keeping your energy strong because that op tempo is exhausting, right? And they'll let you do it. They'll let you do it. They'll let you do it to yourself. The Navy would let you do it. And I would tell people why I like this good seashore rotation is because you need time to unwind a little bit and focus on other areas of your life because sea duty is freaking intense, bro. Like, and especially in Japan. But I can also see, like, when did you meet Mickey? Did you meet her on your? When did you meet Mickey?
1996.
So that's another piece of the conversation, right?
It
So
was.
you're in a committed relationship with a Japanese lady, and a priority is keeping her comfortable and happy. And not always are they immediately wanted to maybe relocate out of the area because they've got family, they've got friends, they've got community, all those things, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it
that's
was interesting. Yeah, very interesting. So I met Mickey, who I'm still married to this day, 27 years later, and 3 kids. So um, I think that was part of the decision a little bit too. But at that time, is she going to kill me for saying it? I loved her, but I wasn't like committed. Does that make sense? So
huh?
I was still trying to figure out this Navy thing, and I really liked, almost borderline loved Mickey at the time. And then I just fell in love with her, and I was like, I'm gonna just do one more tour in Japan. And then it wasn't until the Cushing days when I got married and I had my first son. So then everything exponentially just went forward from there. But
Game
it was an
changer.
interesting time. And also, to your point, back in those days on the O'Brien, we went to Fifth Fleet. I mean, I did 8.5 month deployment on the O'Brien in the Fifth Fleet. There was a DDG recently that chopped over to Fifth Fleet from Seventh Fleet, but it's been years since that happened.
Yeah.
But back in the mid '90s, O'Brien and Cushing, when I was on the Cushing, we deployed to Fifth Fleet in the NAG and the SAG, North Arabian Gulf, South Arabian Gulf. That's what you did. You
Yeah.
just didn't do a 3 month, patrol, what they call them now. Come in for a SIA or a CMAV, get fixed for 3-4 weeks, and then go back out for 3 months. No. You went out 8 months, and then you chopped into Fifth Fleet, and you crossed the line in Singapore, Shellback. You went to Thailand. You went to Hong Kong.
Yep.
You went to Dubai, Bahrain. You operated out there.
100%.
Very
100%, man.
different to now.
It is. And where people don't understand is back in those days, and still it is to this day, if they needed it, they would use them for sure. I have no doubt, right? But it's just how big of an influence China and Korea have become, right? It keeps them out there. But when I was on Bellawood in 1998, we went to the Arabian Gulf because of Desert Fox, right?
Sure.
And we were supposed to go to Hong Kong for a 3-week underway. We came back home 6 months later because we went, they rallied us over there. And then we did I did 11 months one year on the Bellawood underway from Sasebo. 11 months in 1 year away from home port, bro, because of the Arabian Gulf and Desert Fox or East Timor, and they're killing Christians down there. And that was the op tempo. And I remember when I was at Seventh Fleet, and I'm sitting in this big room, and these guys are all planning the schedule for the ships for like the next 3 years. And I'm just like, oh my God, like, is anybody, and this is after all of the bad things that happened in 2018, right? Or 2017. And I'm like, is anybody in the room recognizing this is not a good plan? Like, there's no Liberty ports, there's no home time. Like, we just told them they're going to get better rotational balance.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, all you chuckleheads are throwing freaking spaghetti at the wall, seeing how much of it you can stick. And the problem with that was, and you and I can both remember the Navy before 9/11, right? There was a different, I mean, yes, we operated, yes, we got underway and went to those places, but we hit ports, bro. We hit
All the
ports
time.
all the time, man. When I was on Bellawood, yeah, I spent 11 months away from home port. But as a young sailor, I probably hit about freaking 11 ports in that 11 months minimum, right? Now, I might have been hitting Hong Kong more than, not Hong Kong, because Hong Kong is kind of a crappy one to get into, but Singapore, we're going there. Thailand, the Marines want to go there. Like, we were getting ports. Whereas nowadays, they don't care about ports almost. It's just like, do the mission. Go out and record that other ship with a video camera for freaking 5 months straight, and then let us know how that was when you get back. And
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think it's back in those days. But to your point, I guarantee you, and back in those days, the 11-month deployment, nobody could. There were probably people that complained minimal. That it's just what the Navy did.
yeah,
And now when a carrier or a strike group or an independent deployer deploys for 10, 11 months, it's front page news, and it's a big deal. It's very interesting where we used to be and where we've come. Two things that I think changed the time of the Navy. One, generational change, obviously. Two, China wasn't that big of a big deal in the mid '90s, right? They were still they were communists like they are now, but they weren't the biggest threat. And so the biggest threat was in the Fifth Fleet area of operations. But Fat Leonard changed the whole dynamic of Liberty Ports, and so
Yeah.
all dynamic, especially for the Seventh Fleet AOR. And so um, I lived through that just as much as you did. And in fact, I was investigated for that. And the only reason why I was investigated, short sea story, was when I was the CMC of the Antietam. My boss, Captain Tom Dicey, we pulled into Philippines, 3-4 day port visit. We got underway, and he calls me up to his stateroom after seeing anchor detail, and he's like, "Hey, did you buy this for me?" And I said, "Buy what?" And he said, "This cigar box. It said Captain Tom C. Dicey on it. Thank you for coming to Manila." And then there was like 50 Cuban cigars in there. And I says, "I absolutely didn't buy that for you." And he's like, "Don't lie to me." I'm like, "I didn't buy that for you." He said, "Who put it there?" I said, "I don't know. Call the Suppo." Suppo comes up there. He gave Suppo a real hard time because he really believed Suppo did it. Suppo had nothing to do with it. Turns out it was the Disbo. The Disbo got it right before we're lifting up the brow from the Fat Leonard staff. So, we got underway, and Captain Tom Dice is like, "What are we going to do with this thing?" I says, "I don't know." He's like, "I'm not accepting this as a gift." So we all smoked the cigars as the crew. He led a couple days later, and then I trashed the cigar box and I threw it overboard. But what got him and I into this mess is, fast forward, I was the base CMC in Sigonella, Italy now. NCIS comes to my office and says, "Hey, Mash, I need to do an interview." And I was like, "Can you tell me why?" And I was very close to NCIS because as a CMC, you work for them all the time.
Yep.
He's like, "I don't think you're in any trouble. But we got to do this by the book." And I'm like, "Wow, could this be by?" He's like, "I don't think it's a big deal, but I have to do it." But what happened was Fat Leonard sent an email to the husbanding agent asking if Captain Tom Dicey got the cigars. So when Fat Leonard was indicted, they got all the emails. So they figured out Tom Dicey, Mike Kazabowski was a CMC, the XO they interviewed. Nothing happened for it because we did the right thing. We gave it to the crew and then we got rid of it, but it was never accepted. But the Fat Leonard scanner changed the dynamic of port visits. And then they went to Navy contracting, right? So now to pull in a port visit, it had to be a Navy contractor, which was with FLC at the time, and buy the book. And it changed it. So it was almost, dare I say, harder to pull in a Liberty port because of now all the rules and regulations than it was in the past.
Well,
And then
I
the other
agree.
thing that changed was COVID. COVID, completely changed the world of port visits.
Yep, 100%, man. I think both those things are true, and I want to talk COVID more here in a second. But I remember, so after 9/11, my next ship was USS Ogden out of San Diego, right? And here was a Westpac. We would go from San Diego to Pearl Harbor, Persian Gulf, no stopping in between, no
Sure.
pass and go, no collect $200. We got to go offload the Marines, offload all the gear. Then we go sit off the coast of freaking Iraq and do meals on keels for KOT and ABOT. Or we would go do some we did some really cool special operations stuff, right? Like I'm talking like super secret, sign a piece of paper, don't talk about it for 5 years. Like I saw some cool stuff off the Horn of Africa, freaking people talk about Somalia. We've been jacking up Somalia, right? That is not new. We've been over there. And then we would get done, come back, hit Guam, clean all of our gear off, go to Hawaii, pick up all the people for Tiger Cruise, go to San Diego. And I remember thinking, this is a crappy underway, bro. Like when I was on Bellawood, we'd be out for 4 or 5 months, but we'd be hitting ports just like ting, ting, ting. South Korea, Northern Japan, Thailand, Bali, Singapore, maybe Australia,
Yeah.
right? We would hit all these ports, these stateside deployers, because it was just operational focus. It was not about liberty. It was about getting out there because we're at war. And then I feel like, yes, Seventh Fleet was still maybe not all the way plugged into that because they were still focusing on their AOR, and Fat Leonard was a corrupt son of a gun, and so was a bunch of other senior Navy leaders that was all playing games, right? Freaking the good old boys club or whatever you want to call them. They were riding helicopters from the ship to the person's place or whatever, like crazy stuff, right? And you know what's
Oh
crazy
yeah.
about that? For as dirty as they were, one of those guys was my commanding officer on board the George Washington, right? And he was mean, bro. He was so mean. He was so. I remember one time we did an inspection and we did really good on the inspection, right? And I'd only been on the ship like 4 months and we did very, very good. I thought we did well for me only being there 4 months. And he's like, damage control is a cancer on board this ship and I'm going to eradicate them. And I'm like, whoa, like, damn, bro. Like, sir, we did good. Like, we did.
Yeah.
I was like, Master Chief Larry DeBow was the head of the inspection team. I was like, Larry, tell him we did good, bro. Like, he doesn't understand. He's just over here going high and to the right. And then I found out later, like, dog, you're dirty? Okay, bro. Now I want to throat punch you. Now I want to take you in the alley and fight you because don't be dirty and then be that mean on top of that, bro. Like, come
Yeah,
on,
like
man. Like,
yeah, like how dare
what the
you? You
hell?
know, I got one too. My first DCA in the Navy, Ensign Stephen Shedd. So Stephen Shedd was my first DCA in the Navy, and he was a really good ensign DCA. He went up the ladder. He made commander. He was the CO of a DDG in San Diego. My buddy sends me an article, indicted. He went to jail, wife and a couple kids. And I was like, wow, what happened to this dude, man?
Yeah.
Like, wow. And then there was the SKC, who I knew from ATG, who went to Naples, wife, small kids, indicted, all for Hennessy and all this other crap. So that Flat Leonard scandal, I don't even know if it's done. Like they are still going and going and going. And it took a lot of flag officers down. It took everyone. I mean, they got it. And
And you're right. I think coming out of the war on terror, because if you look at the timing, right, they started putting all the toys away 2012, right? 2000 during the Obama years, they start boxing everything up. All right, everybody, we're no longer going to be so operationally focused on war. Now we're going to be more focused on uh, I'd say the rules of the sea, right? What do the rules of the sea look like? And what are the rules when it comes to resources? And what are the rules when it comes to freedom of navigation and all those
sure.
things, right? Because meanwhile, China's freaking building islands in the middle of the ocean and
Yeah.
laying claim to our friends' resources, right? And claiming things. But then as they're doing that, people started getting willy-nilly with their focus and started taking freebies. And what they forgot was that technology in the war on terror was like neck and neck, right? Like it
Yeah.
was like they used the war on terror to really ramp money in the technology field. Because I remember we went from having Blackberries and Nextels to freaking in like 8 years, right? Technology flew, and Japan was always ahead of all that anyway, right? We had phones in Japan that people didn't have in the States years ahead of time because the technology was flying. And then people just idle hands, and then people really thinking they were that. I remember being in a change of command in Japan. George Washington, and it was 2012. And the hats the ladies were wearing, you would think they were at the Kentucky Derby, right? You would think because it's like I tell people sometimes being in Japan is like what it would have been like to be in Pearl Harbor before the attack on World War II, right? Like where the military leadership was the aristocrats of the island. They were the leaders. And if you were a politician, you wanted to be involved with the leaders of the military. And who's who in the zoo. I remember we were at the change of command of George Washington, and my chief engineer didn't know how to do the sword thing because he was an ROTC, not a Naval Academy guy, right? And so he's like trying to work on the sword thing. Well, my DCA was former enlisted who went to the Naval Academy,
Mm.
and now he's in 04, and he's a freaking shaker and mover, right? He's a ring knocker in their world. And I remember DCA goes walking by. The DCA signed up to escort people to their seats, right? As an 04. He goes walking by, escorting his wife to a seat. And Chang was doing a sword, practicing a sword. He's like, what the hell is she doing here? Why is she here? What? She can't be. And DCA was like, right? Because he was moving, and he went from being the DCA at George Washington to ATG Westpac director of training, right? And he was working those angles, and unfortunately, sometimes in those kinds of environments, people will start believing the hype. They'll start thinking they can get away with stuff, and then once that domino falls, it all starts coming out, right?
Oh yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I mean, it took down many out. It's interesting story. And man, did it give the Navy a bad rep. I think that's the hardest part is like, you know, you think about taxpayers, you think about people send their kids off to the military, pick a branch, it's the safest, you know, most ethically honest organization. And then Fat Leonard breaks, and you realize how many people took gifts. And, you know, we've always had ethics in the military. We always have. And whether or not you choose to take those ethics or believe by those ethics was a choice. Even today, it's a choice, right? And so, you know, even now, we're in my position, you know, a lot of like this travel here, I can never go on travel without having an ethics opinion. And it's never you can't do this, Mass Chief, or you can do this, Mass Chief. It's here's my recommendation. It's the onus is on you. The onus was on them back then. But free willy days back in those days, people were just doing it left and right.
They were.
You know, it was and when, like, to your point, when that domino fell, man, did it fall hard. And I guarantee you, when the first news story broke, there were plenty of officers, junior and senior and enlisted, you know, shaking in their pants. Oh my God, I went to this party, I went to this dinner, I took this hotel. But then you started reading about the prostitution and all the other things that naval officers and enlisted were doing while married. And that just gave the military a terrible, terrible, you know, sick feeling. And it was bad. It was bad.
You know, and I think to that point, a piece of that, again, it was our culture, because you and I both grew up out there in the 7th Fleet AOR. We know what it was like growing up, going to those ports, right? And look, when I went back to the fleet again, so where did you make chief at? Did you make chief on your second or third boat?
I made chief on shore duty in 2003 at back in those days, it was a float training group firefighting school in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. And then so 2003, it was ATG. Then it went to CNE right before I PCS.
So you went from the first ship to the second 2 ships, and you went up to DC-1. Now, on the second 2 ships, was that a whole swap, or did you do a full 3 years on each ship?
No, so I was on the O'Brien and then the Cushing, and then I went to shore duty in Hawaii. I made chief in 2003. And then I went to my next command, which was the USS Gary in 2005.
And that was in Yoko?
Correct. And then from 5 to 7, I was on the USS Gary, and then the Gary went back to the States, and the McCampbell came out. So I went from an FFG to a DDG.
Okay.
Went from a Yugo to a Cadillac.
Yeah, but you were in a committed relationship with your wife for those second 2 ships for sure, right? Like, you were in a relationship. And I say that because as a young man in the military, especially in the Navy, it can be crazy out there, right? You can hit some of these ports, especially you're coming from hometown USA. You go to some of these countries like Pattaya Beach, Thailand, or freaking Whisper Alley, Okinawa, or whatever it is, right? And people could lose their damn minds, right? People could, and it's like, as a chief, when I got back to the fleet, I'm married. I wouldn't even go on Liberty, bro. Like, I had to be very careful who I would trust myself with, because it was wild out there. And I always wanted to be in the place that I could be there to support the people that were coming back, trying to figure out, how did I let myself dive into that deep hole? Because you start drinking, and the next thing you know, you're doing crazy things, and then you're back on the ship, and you're like, what was I thinking? What was I doing? My mom and dad didn't raise me to be that way. I'm not this kind of, like, what am I? And I've always been there for them. And then on the reverse, we've unfortunately always seen even senior people out there doing their thing, right? And I remember even as a Master Chief, I would be counseling guys because they would come talk to me about geobaching and missing their family and struggling, or how many times did somebody make a bad choice, right? And now they're in your office, they're crying, and you're just like, bro, like I got love for you, dog, but we got to just wait and ride this one out, homie. This is going to be a tough ride, And
Yeah.
when I look back on how those people made those decisions, it's because they possibly never matured to the point where they didn't realize like that's not what people really do, bro. Like regular people are not out there trying to make music videos at 47 years old with the bottles of Hennessy and like crazy freaking people. Like that's not what adults do, right? But they're out there trying to fulfill some fantasy that they watched on some movie or that they grew up doing overseas, or they never even did it when they were younger, so they're trying to do it when they're older, right?
Yeah,
Blows my mind.
it is. I took up golf and I really enjoyed golf, and I went out drinking and had a good time and all that stuff too. But I always told people, even as a CMC on ships when we pull in Liberty ports, I don't care what you do, it's not my problem. I said, but um, as soon as you bring it back to the boat and you make it my problem, and then we're gonna have a problem.
Yeah.
So they're all grown men and women. They're going to make a decision. They're going to make a choice, and I'm not judge and juror. So don't put it in my hands, and don't put it in the command's hands. But yeah,
Brother, I remember, so my first CMC tour, Ashland, I get there, I get to the ship, literally 6 days later, we're getting underway. So I get my family just in housing, just in enough time. Erica's got loaner furniture. We're going underway. And we're pulling into the first ports, Thailand. And I've been on the ship like 3 weeks, like maybe 3.5 weeks. And I pull my chief's mess and I pull all the gunnies and everything into the mess, right? With me and the sergeant major. And I'm like, all right, guys, look around the room. Look around the room. Who's going to do it? Who's going to be the one that makes us all look bad? Who's going to be the one that lets this team down? We've been in here playing spades. We've been in here talking shop, watching Sons of Anarchy. Like, I
yeah,
want y'all to have fun. I'm not saying don't get out there and enjoy Thailand. I'm just saying look to your right, look to your left, and can we make a commitment that none of us is going to be that guy? And they're all like, hell yeah, Gary, we can do that. We got you, bro. Yes, CMC, blah, blah, blah. Cool. We pull in. I don't leave the ship at all, bro. My CO goes on Liberty with the XO. Nobody wants to go on Liberty with me because I'm the new guy, and I don't want to have any fun anyway. Because evidently, I don't care. I don't mind. Y'all leave. I
yeah.
got the message myself. I'll watch freaking Game of Thrones. I'll email my wife. I'm good, bro. I didn't come out here for Liberty. I came out here to work, right? I'm new on the job. Y'all are gone. I'm gonna be working my quals. I'm gonna get my quals up. No problem. We get underway. And I'm thinking we're okay, right? And I'll never forget, I'm walking down the P-way from getting underway. Like literally, they just let the tugs leave. And I'm walking down from the boat deck into the port side walkway on the LSD. And my MRC, my machinery repair chief says, hey, Master Chief, can I talk to you for a minute? And I, yup, dive into the side. Got a sailor in there. She crying, right? And I was like, what's going on? And they lay out this whole story that, remember, everyone's got Liberty buddies. There's a
Yeah.
curfew, all the above. That one of my chief petty officers left his Liberty buddy at one point, goes to this EM3's apartment where she is with her fellow EM3, who's her guy, right? And he not only refuses to leave because he's trying to block the EM3 from getting with the other EM3 because he thinks he's got a romantic relationship with the female EM3, but at some point puts a bottle opener up to this kid's throat and threatens to open him up. Right? He's a chief. He's E7. And I'm like, wow, I'm sorry that happened. Do me a favor. Don't say anything else to anybody else. That I have it. I'll be back. Are you okay? She's like, yeah, I just really want someone to know because it was really scary. And now they're back on the ship and he wants to beat him up. And I'm like, yeah, all that. All that. I'm surprised it didn't already happen, bro, because if you put a bottle opener against my throat and threaten to open me up, I don't get, bro. Me as a third, I was buck wild as a third class as a fireman. I might have gone to prison for what I probably would have done to you on the backside of that. And that kid didn't do that, right? And I remember I go up to the bridge wing, and the captain's literally in his chair on the bridge, enjoying the view as we're going underway. And remember, I've only been in CMC for like 3 weeks. And he's like, "Hey, CMC, how's it going?" I'm like, "Sir, do you mind if I speak to you for a second? I just got a question." He's like, "Oh boy." I was like, "Yeah, yeah." He's like, "All right." And we go out in the bridge wing. I tell him what I know. He's like, "Okay, Master Chief, just sit tight." Later on that afternoon, set flight quarters. Helo lands. Dude gets off of cargo pants. Dude, the mess. Everyone is in the mess. "Gary, what happened? What happened?" Because everyone knows when NCIS gets off their helo, right? And that chief, um, he's on watch. He doesn't know what's come out. He doesn't know what's going on. And when they start pulling people up for the investigation, he comes to my office and he's crying, bro. 'Cause he's got a wife and kids back in Sasebo, right? Got a wife and kids back in Sasebo, right? He crying, Gary, I just don't want, I want to stay here. I want to do the job. I want to do the thing. I was like, "Look, bro, I get it. Trust the process." Right? Trust the process. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking to myself, like, I want to jack you over right now. Like, you are a bad guy. Like, you put that young lady in that position. We're grown men. She's 20 years old, right? You're supposed to be a father figure, mentor for her, all these other things, not being a weirdo. And then, oh, by the way, you got family that you just did dirt on, which is jacked up, right? And the process runs its course and they get him off the ship, right? But that was 3 weeks into my CMC tour, and I can keep going, Kaz. I know you can too,
Oh yeah.
right? And so it's not just there's not a monopoly in any one area. It's just that people lose their ever loving minds when they get out there and start drinking. I tell this to my students, like, look, if I could give you any advice, it would be very cautious around alcohol and very careful who you allow yourself to be around. And don't ever forget who you're supposed to be when you decided you wanted to be somebody. Because I've seen people throw it all away off of one day of bad choices, you
Oh,
know?
so have I. Yeah. And I like a good bourbon and a glass of whiskey. I do. Um, I think a lot of it's maturity and age too, right?
Yeah.
Back in those days, again, I'm not saying it was the right thing to do. People got a little bit crazy back in the days, and then we have changed socially, economically, diplomatically, generationally throughout years, right? And so then you have the old school mentality. You have people like me and you who've been doing this for a long time that are still in uniform that go to a Liberty Port. Well, back in my day, let me show you. Well, back in your day, that may have been acceptable or you got away with it. You
Yeah.
ain't going to get away with it now. And also back in the day, when you did something stupid, it was taken care of right then and there. And then you moved on from it. Meaning you could rebound, I think, back in the day a lot better than you can nowadays. There's just
Yeah.
not a lot of tolerance for that crap anymore. And I don't think there should. We're an all volunteer organization. We're not begging people to join the military. You sign your hand and you volunteer to come in. And then the Navy is a lot different today than it was back in then. A lot different. Think about when Subic Bay was open and all those crazy Liberty ports back then. It's not like that today. But the sailors are different too. They're smarter. This generation is way smarter than our generation. Technology, technological advances. It's so different nowadays. But
I
yeah,
agree.
I mean,
I agree.
I've
I
seen a
agree.
lot of stuff on ships and things that it's like buyer's remorse. Just like you, I've told the chiefs, hey, go out and have a good time, X, Y, and Z, but just don't bring your problems back to the ship or the mess. And they do, and then they're in the office crying, "Oh, woe is me! I drank too much." Alcohol is not a defense, man. Like you made a decision,
Yep. You
Eh,
forgot you were the adult in the room, bro. That's my
yeah,
thing, right? Like you forgot you were a daddy. You forgot you were a husband. You forgot you were a man in my mind is supposed to be there as a leader, not to be there as the person who's leading people down the wrong path. Because then you're just evil, bro. And when you're evil, you can't be a part of a service organization that has to do things for the greater good. It's
Yeah.
not going to freaking work, bro. We're not going to be aligned. And to your point, look, I think where the Navy, where a lot of organizations get it wrong, is they let these processes just draw out so damn long, right? No, get it over with quickly. We all know he's guilty. It's done. Why are we? So that dude went on to go back to the MCMRON for a year and fight the case, right? And then went on for another 8 months at the MCMRON fighting the case of the discharge, suppressing my billet the whole time for a chief petty officer on my ship, mind you, because the Navy says, well, you chose to have him leave. No, bro. He should have lost his overseas screening, got sent back to the States, all that. But we couldn't do that because some jag would have said it was freaking in violation of some rights or whatever it was, right? And then here was the best part. A couple years later, I'm still CMC the ship, and I get a request for overseas screening for him as a male dependent because his wife got a job for MWR on the base, and the installation wants to know, do we recommend them for overseas screening? I told the base master, hell no, no. My sailor's got to walk around this base every day and see this guy. He's still lucky this young third class ain't cleaned his clock, right? Bro, if I'm a dad and I find out you put a bottle opener to my kid's neck and you threaten him, I might be making a trip to Japan, right? Because guess what? When I was a kid, I remember one time when I was like 15, I got in a fight with like a 19-year-old guy. And I remember I'm about to fight this 19-year-old guy. And one of my big friends comes in the room. He's like, why are you going to fight him? I was like, because he said something, blah, blah, blah. He's like, no, no, no. I got this. He's like, look, bro, you're 19, I'm 19. Let's go. Me and you toe up. Like, we'll both go to jail together. You're not going to fight no 15-year-old, right? And those are the chiefs that I like. Like, I like those guys. Like, you're not going to just come over and take advantage of this young person. And it's not just chiefs. I'm just using that as an example. It's people in positions of authority, responsibility, and opportunity that mishandle that trust. And it's not just the Navy, because I will tell you, I've been a teacher now for 3 years. Bro, my first year as a teacher, it comes out that a dean who is responsible for doing administrative management of kids in class is doing sexual things with students in his office during the school day.
Yeah.
And I was just, they told me it all comes out. And they're looking at me. And I was like, man, I wish I was surprised. Y'all don't even know what I've dealt with in my life. Like, it's sad that it's happened. But here's the thing, the students knew. And I tell the students the same thing that I tell people in the Navy. The sailors always know. The students always know. So I tell the students, y'all should have been told me. Y'all should have came and told me this guy was a perv. This guy was a weirdo, because I would have went out there and freaking handled that. That's not acceptable. And his case is still going on, bro, 2 years later through the system. Like, in my mind, I'll just be honest with you. Let the family members of those young girls have at them, because they're going to be screwed for a long time, because they're going to be conflicted with how they look at physical relationships with men for a long time, because they were groomed by this dude from the age of 14 until they was 18.
It's
right?
sad. Yeah.
Sad,
A guy,
bro.
someone that was in a position of authority and especially a teacher, that's sickening. Yeah.
So it's not just a military thing, it's around the world. And
Yeah.
I watch them do these stings of people that are freaking trying to hook up with kids online and do stuff, right? And again, I am surrounded by children every day that are so motivating, so inspiring, so connected, so united, bro. You want to talk about having different areas where they could be segregated, and they're not, right? My ROTC program, all kinds of flavors. And you'll have people dating you would have never seen dating. It's almost like the military, bro, where people are all kinds of coming together and getting together. Go to a Friday night football game, and the community is just like that. But then you have bad people in the world that do bad things, right? All right, so getting back on track, because this is why I like talking to you, because we can go into all kinds of fun stuff, and we've all seen it. When you made Chief, what year did you make Chief?
2003.
Woo! So I made it in 06. So you were 3 years ahead of me. All right, Naked Chief in 2006 or 2003 at shore duty in Hawaii. Were you a part of the big island-wide initiation process?
I was. There were 31 of us, and it was a lot. Yeah, it was the last year they called it initiation,
Yep.
officially initiation. They
Yep.
call it initiation now, but let's face facts. 22 years ago, the word initiation had a different meaning to it than the word initiation now. So,
Yep.
um, I'm not old school, I don't think by any means compared to the people that made Chief in the 70s, 80s, or the 90s even. But it was the last year they called it initiation. It was 2003 on shore duty, and there was 31 Chief selects, and that was an interesting time. And at the time, my wife was pregnant, which made a lot more stress in both of our lives. But yeah,
Yeah. I bet. And number one, what a great place to make Chief, right? Hawaii. Just the
yeah,
heritage. I love the Navy heritage in the different areas. So like Yoko, Sasebo, Hawaii, Pac Northwest, San Diego, Virginia, Florida. Like every one of those area fleet concentration areas have so much heritage, right? That I respect. Like I
yeah.
always have gone to those places and like wanted to hear about how it was there back in the day because they all have their own unique cultures for our Navy. So when you sit the board or you go to these events and you meet people from all over and you get to compare notes, right? You get to talk about things that are same platform but just different challenges, but you can understand it. So I think making Chief in Hawaii is that's a great place to make it, especially in that big group because you're dealing with people all over the island. But then there's a lot of traveling, there's a lot of driving, there's a lot of commuting, there's a lot of all that stuff, right? Doing
A lot of
extra things. And you
fundraising
never
back
have,
then too.
yeah, yeah.
It was
Um,
interesting. We got pinned underneath the banyan tree in Fort Island. So in 2003, we marched from where ATG was on Fort Island, where all the guests and people were waiting by the banyan tree. And interesting enough, so I got pinned to Chief in 2003 underneath the banyan tree. And then my last CMC tour prior to coming to Japan, I was the CMC at Naval Surface Group Middle Pacific.
yeah.
So fast forward 21 years, 20 years, my son, Sean, who's now a naval officer, was in uniform and he re-enlisted me for my final time underneath the same banyan tree that I was pinned to Chief.
I you know what's so fun about that, besides the cyclical, besides just the full circle, is you've always had that eye for doing things that are just freaking meaningful, right? And when people don't know the whole storyline behind it, if you get the chance to break it down, people are just like, oh my God, like you put that much thought into it, and you're like, oh yeah, I did. Like, but that's who you are, bro. You speak
Yeah,
Japanese, you have that. And look, to be a good CMC, in my opinion, you have to have that eye. You got to be able to brand it. You got to be able to sell it to people why this matters and why it's important. And it's not about you, it's about the people that are going to see that storyline and appreciate it, right? You're not just a CMC retiring, you're a sailor who has a family that's multicultural, who now has a son who's a naval officer,
yeah,
who's freaking there re-enlisting you. Like, if you can't, that's America, bro. Like, not only is that America, but that's FDNF, like to extreme levels. And when I say that, it's because I'm super loyal to FDNF because I love the communities that support our sailors overseas and their families, especially in Japan. I remember when Tomodachi happened and how hard that was and that on that community, and how hard it was for everybody, and watching them rally. And they've always been there for our community whenever we needed them, and I hope that we're always there for them when they need us. Right, that partnership. And I feel like that's a great representation of how that blending of those two cultures came together. And your son is the epitome of what we would like to see going forward. God
yeah,
knows what he'll do with it, right? Like, who knows, right? It's up to him. God bless. Go do great things. But you created a life, and every human wants that for their kids, right? They want to see their kids. I told my students the other day, I said, look, if you don't try to do better than your parents did in life, you drop the bag, bro. Like, it's not their job to get you to do better. You should want to pick up the bag and say, I got it, dad. Let me
yeah,
run. And I remember when I told my dad, I was like, I love you. but I saw every mistake that you made, and my commitment to you is I'm not going to make the same mistakes. Done. Like he was like, that's good, bro. Like what else could I ask for?
Sure.
Because you're gonna leverage my experience to go out and make your life great. So you come through Chiefs initiation, you put on anchors, ATG. How many years do you have in the Navy at that point?
8.
8. Did you know yet you wanted to go to the command program?
No, I will be honest with you. I was deathly afraid when I made chief. Um, you know, I made chief in 2003. I've been in the Navy 8 years, 2 sea commands, and then on shore duty. And so when I made chief, one, my season was a lot different too. You know, I was beat down a lot. I was the youngest. I was 26 years old, and I was 8 years in the Navy. So of the 31 chief selects, not only was I the youngest of them, I was also the least amount of time in service. And so I'm not saying I had a bad experience. I'll never tell anybody I had a bad experience. What I'll tell people of my experience of initiation, it's just a different experience than when other people went through. But I struggled. My wife was pregnant, third kid at the time, a young 26-year-old, and then everyone was telling me during my initiation how I'm not going to be a good chief because I was too young and I didn't have experience. So there was so much going through my head. And then it was the physical training, the breakfasts. We didn't have teaching to the creed in 2003. Like the seasons were just put together by people of generational chiefs, senior chiefs, and master chiefs that this is what they think will make a good chief.
Yeah.
And so I don't even remember going to training sessions. I did PQS, but the PQS was not like what the PQS is of today.
Yeah.
So it was a very interesting season, and there was absolutely a kangaroo court for final night. I went to the hospital twice because I couldn't even move my arms anymore because of the push-ups. And I was told by my sponsor, you better not go light limit of duty. Just ask for Motrin. I mean, that's what they told me. And so when I went to medical, I said, you can't give me light limit of duty, give me Motrin. Then that's what they did. And so you just figured out how to get through it. Season was just a lot different back then. I'm not telling you it's bad. There was things I learned, and there was things I was like, what the hell? That made no sense to me. And then when I got out to my first ship on the Gary, man, I was intimidated. I remember that. It was 2005. I met the ship in Okinawa. They flew me to Okinawa. They got me down to White Beach, Okinawa, and the ship was anchored out the Gary. And I had my sea bag. I was a chief at the time. And I get on the boat, the rib. They bring me up to the Gary. They took the line. They pull up my sea bag. They brought me right into the chief's mess on a frigate, FFG 51, USS Gary. And it was right after lunch had secured by the time I got on the ship. And if you've ever been on a frigate, the chief's mess is very small. There's a little lounge area, then the little eating area, and then the berthing was behind it. And they gave me a cold cheeseburger, and all or majority of the chiefs sat around and just started looking at me. And they're like, eat. I'm already a chief. You know what I mean? It's so different than what it is today. Man, was I intimidated. Like, what? Am I going to be a good chief? Am I be a bad chief? My HT1 and other people had more time in service than I did. And there was a loyalty to the chief that I relieved that led differently than how I was going to lead based off my experience and how I was brought up in the Navy. And so we got through the turnover, and then my HT1 was rough behind the edges, and we finally clicked when he saw the light, and then I was there to help him, not hurt him. But yeah, I struggled as a young chief. No ifs, ands, or I think even nowadays, we're making chief at 5, 6, 7, 8 years of the Navy. They struggle too. I mean, what I tell these young chiefs now that make chief, even they're in the season right now, I said, the only difference between me and you is experience and time. That's it. I mean, I'm no better than you. You're no better than me. It's just experience. And I can't give that to somebody. I could talk to somebody till they're blue in the face about how to lead, what leadership books to read, how to do this, what to do, what not to do. The reality is what I can't give them is experience, trial and error. learning from your own mistakes, making a decision and then faulting, and then picking yourself back up. You talked about resiliency earlier. I didn't realize what resiliency was until I was on the FITS, the post collision CMC tour. I didn't no idea what resiliency was, what it meant, and it took a different meaning on for me. The only difference between me and them is just experience. But I struggled as a young chief at 26 years old. To be perfectly honest with you,
I get it,
why
man.
don't I think anybody would have at that age? You know what I mean?
100%, man. I think that uh, adding on to what you just said, besides wisdom, you can't give them the ability to be consistent, and you can't give them the ability to have the work ethic, right? Nobody can put the work in for you. And a lot of people struggle, at least in our Navy or in all the armed forces, I would say, when they hit that rank of like E6, E7, because it's really just a very visible space in your career. And if you're not able to do the work, it's going to be a problem. And people struggle with that. And what I've found is that if they can be consistent and be willing to put the work in every day, they'll probably be okay. Oh, and humble enough to ask for help, right? And humble enough to know they don't know everything and not be afraid of being looked down upon. When I got to the GW, I was a 12-year senior chief, right? I mean, I got there as a 12-year chief. I had been an ATG for 2.5 years, and I had made chief on the end of my tour on board the Ogden. And so I get there and I'm a senior chief. And I remember Marty King was my CMC on the GW at the time, right? And I'm still trying to get Marty on here. Like, I would love to have Marty on here for a conversation. And I'd get Dave Singer too. That'd be a good one too. But Marty, he's like, Skittle, you just made senior chief and you got another 3 years on board this aircraft carrier. Gosh dang it. I was like, what the hell? And he was so annoyed. He made me throw out my CMC PQS and do a whole nother PQS again. Because he's like, no, I don't accept that. Do it all over again, right? And because he understood that I was going to go through some things, that seasoning, that you were going to need that time. And I was going to be dealing with a bunch of other senior chiefs and mass chiefs that had like 20 years in the Navy already.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And getting comfortable in your own skin. Because you know what? Even though I was insecure and uncomfortable, I would still lock in and go head up against anybody because my guys deserve that, right? And for my people, I was willing to throw down. And that was what it was all about. And that's probably what HT1 saw about you. It was like, okay, I got it. You're in the Navy longer than me, but do you have a seat at the table during lunch? No. Okay, I do, bro. So what do we need to know so I can go in there and advocate for us to win, right? And when he recognizes that part, you're going to be okay, right? But if I've had people that were first classes. When I was at the GW, almost every one of my first classes had more time in the Navy than me.
Oh yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And, I'm 12 years as a senior chief. They're all 15, 16, 17-year first classes. Sorry, bro. You're all taller than me too. I don't care. Like, I don't care. We're going to win. We're a team. We're the DC men or the repair division or the shop or whatever. That's fine. And I feel like the best leaders, and this when I was a CMC, I brought this to the table as well. Don't lead by division. I don't want to hear why there's engineers and writers. I don't want to hear that. We are working for the captain who owns everything. We need to be united as an organization because people that would DC men, I always felt like we were kind of ostracized in engineering. Like we were always kind of, unless we qualified all the engineering watches, we weren't looked
Right.
at as being as good as, right? And I would get into arguments with the leadership when I was on the carrier because I look, bro, I appreciate you want me on watch down there, but here's the thing. My job is to lead the reentry into that space after you've all been blown up. How can I do that if I'm down there? Nobody else here has that training that I have. Nobody else here has that requirement or that responsibility. I don't mind getting the qual because I want to be a team member, but I've got to qualify other people to my level so that I'm comfortable telling the captain that you've got people to respond to the casualty. And oh, by the way, whenever the bells ring, I expect every engineer to hit the deck with the flying squad, not just us. If we're not doing that, then we got problems, bro.
Yeah. I think it's ship specific too, right? So you speak of a carrier, which is a different animal and beast in itself. For me, I was on the Gary, and to your point, our division was a side thing, right? I mean, the GSMs, the GSEs, the enginemen, that was the bread and butter of that ship, specifically the engineman because it was a diesel ship, right? So It's very interesting. We had gas turbine generators, but we also had backup diesel engines. So, you know, uh, I got EAL qualified on the Gary, and it wasn't, to your point, until I got EAL qualified that our division kind of, you know, got its, light out there. And I always wonder and think back, why was it because I got an EAL letter that our division started getting the limelight or street cred? And then the DCA got EAL qualified. And then it turns out me and him were 6 on, 6 off. And so then I became the department LCPO. And then I was running the GSEs, the GSMs, and Engineman. And they didn't like it. Why is in our division? And then I always thought to myself, well, if you chiefs were so damn good, then you would have been the department LCPO. But I don't know what to tell you. So I think it's ship specific too.
I will tell
and
you, D. Seaman, you know our community as much as I do. You sat on the boards. Look, D. Seaman, unfortunately, are either really, really good or they're really, really in trouble because
Yeah.
it's such a visible program, especially when it comes to Mob D, like mobility defense, when it comes to 3M, like the maintenance program and the DCPO shop, right? I tell people, you take me to any ship, I don't care what class, bro. Show me a DCPO training, show me a damage control training team brief, and show me a zone inspection, and I'll tell you the culture of that ship. Because
Yeah, no
if they're
doubt.
not doing, that's all I need.
And yeah, the DC rate specifically, it's interesting. Back in the mid 2000s, early 2000s, you were never going to advance without an EL letter.
Yeah.
And the epitome of going from chief to senior chief in engineering was an EL letter. Part of the reason why I got it, but the other main reason why I got an EL letter was because I was told I couldn't get it. And so I had a chief engineer that says, "You're just a DC man, you're not going to get EL." And I said, "Well, at least allow me the opportunity to try." And he says, "Yeah, good luck." And then the funniest thing is I got qualified. The GSMC, Frank Marcos is his name. He makes LDO, makes warrant officer, and now he's got to put me on the watch bill. Hilarious. And then who relieved me? The DCA, and then at times the Chang. And I can remember I used to do the walkthroughs through the plant, and then before I took the watch, because that's how I was trained to do. You walk the plant prior to you take the watch.
Yep.
And there was oil and bilges and rags and this crap, and the Chang was on watch. And I used to go up to CCS, who's a lieutenant at the time, and say, "I'm not taking the watch." And boy, was he pissed. He's like, "What do you mean you're not taking the watch?" I says, "You need to have your watch standards, an MER1 and AUX1 clean up it before I take the watch." And you would have swore he would have almost lost his mind. I says, "That's your standing order, not mine. I'm not taking the watch." Part of it, I did it because just to give him a little, right back at you what you told me what I wasn't going to do. But second of all is, how come you as the Chang aren't holding your watch standards accountable? Because when you turn over for me, I walk the plant too. And if it ain't ready for turnover, I'll tell the oncoming watch, I'm not ready to turn over yet. We got some work to do.
Yeah.
Very interesting times in the Navy. Very, very, very much
Was he an LDO?
No.
That's crazy. Like, you're not even an LDO chief engineer. You're going to make a comment like a DC man's not going to do something because they're a DC man. Like,
Yeah.
who
And
trained him up on that, right? Someone
yeah,
taught him that. So
no doubt.
Yeah, and for me, again, I would tell people, if you have a problem with the DC man, you can expect a short dude with a ball head to hit your door. I'm coming through hard because I came up undesignated. I came from the pit. I worked with the B. I was raised by the BTs, right? They were pissed when I struck damage control. I hit it. I didn't tell no one I was striking DC because they would have all freaking. I was a golden child, right? I was on every watch team. They loved me, right? Because I was
Yeah.
smart. I was small enough to get in the steam drum and strong enough to turn the wrench, right? I would go into anything. I didn't care. I love being a snipe. I struck damage control because I was a DCPO too, right? Collateral duty. And I was
Yeah.
like, them dudes have a shop with a TV. They get to watch National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. That sounds like fun, bro. I don't got no shop. I got the pit and my rack. There's no in between, right? When I came back to the fleet as a DC2, I tried to go down to the pit and get my quals. The MMCM, he's like, "Oh, he just put me on the watch bill to be a BT lower level." I'm like, "Look, bro, no, I'm trying to get my EAL letter. I'm trying to get my quals up. I don't mind staying on watch. Oh, you're just a DC man. Okay, you know what? I'm off the watch bill. No, you're not. We need you on the watch bill. Yes, I am. I went to the
Man,
freaking. I went to
I
the
wish I had a
XO.
nickel. I wish I had a nickel for every time someone told me you're just a DC man.
Yep, yep. So I remember my DCC was an EOW at the time, right? And I'm like, look, I'm running ER9. I've got a whole work center to take care of all the DCPO maintenance on the ship. I cannot afford to just be 6 and 6 because this guy wants me to be stuck in a position. If there was growth and an opportunity, I would sacrifice. He's telling me there's no growth, no sacrifice. Okay, bro. And this is what I would mentor D. Seaman. I would tell him, your path to success is not through engineering. We have too many command programs. Your path to success is through the command. Make the command safety program a good thing. Make the command damage control training organization a good thing. Make the command 3M organization a good thing. The
Yeah.
DCPO. And if you, I remember, so what's funny is the year I made chief, uh, I got selected to be sailor of the year that year. And I had only been a first class for a year. Like literally, I got paid and was sailor of the year like back to back months. Right. And then I made chief like the following summer. And when I'm in the mess after initiation's all said and done, and they were like, "You want to hear about the sailor of the year board?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, I mean, whatever." They're like, "Bro, what's so funny is engineering came in, you were their ranked number 3 first class, and every other DLCPO ranked you as number 1 on the ship." And so we all laughed the top snipe out the door because they're like, bro, you're just a hater. You're just a hater because Wise is freaking putting in the work and doing all the things. Because I was helping everybody else win by helping them with their DCPO maintenance, by helping them with their damage control training, whatever it is. But I think the damage control rate is undermanned by about 80%, right? The United States Navy needs to, if they're, now some ships do it better than others. Some ships do it better than others. But if they're not doing the collective, every department head gets their spaces ready to go to sea and they take ownership of their space. If they're putting it all on some lone DC chief, then he needs like 40 more people that work for him directly. Right. And on an aircraft carrier, brother, I will tell you the amount of man hours of maintenance you have on board that ship. I have more maintenance than the weapons department in just my division, right? You look at all the magazine sprinkler maintenance they've got to do on all those mags, how many bodies they have just for that. That's the manning that I need in order to make that happen, or less TAD requirements. Because if I got 80 sailors, I'm TADing like 30 of them off the top every day for
Yeah.
something.
It's interesting how you look at, and I haven't looked at DC maintenance in a while, obviously, but I would imagine, just imagine, that if you total the amount of, pick any class of ship, just my guess, and I could be wrong. If you total the amount of maintenance required in a week for our division, if you did it, and I'm not saying people aren't, so I'm careful with my words, 100% by the book, I guarantee there are many commands. I'm I'm probably sure that there's many commands in the Navy that don't have enough manning to meet the accomplishment of the amount of workload that
They
goes
don't.
into maintenance. And I would say not just our division. There's probably many other divisions out there too. But manning's always been a topic of
But
discussion.
I will tell you, and I had this conversation with Lisa Tisdale not too long ago, and I wrote a paper about this one time when I went to Senior Enlisted Academy, because I said remove man hour requirements from the PMS cards because they're a lie, right? Don't When I tell a sailor you're supposed to do X amount of man hours theoretically in a week, right, give or take, and then they do the math because they're not dumb, right? And HFLF daily alone is going to blow the man hours for a few bodies, right? And so that's just a daily. And on an aircraft carrier, when I've got 20 HFLF stations,
Yeah.
right, and I've got 2 pumps on every station, and we can have that conversation. But I said my point was remove the man hour requirement because you really don't care. Just get the job done. Okay, that's I could deal with that. But it's a say do mismatch when you act like man hours care because they affect manning. That's another falsehood. Man hours don't affect manning. Racks affect manning. There's only so many racks on the boat, period. Hard stop, right? There's only so many racks on the boat. And when I hear the whole, oh, we got unfunded billets, don't tell me that. When I was on my shore duty down there in Guam, right? And I got there. I went from being 100% military to 20% military, 80% civilian. But then they would say, oh, but you got like 60 unfunded military billets. Okay, well, then here comes the pandemic where all the civilians go home and I'm
Yeah.
being asked to do things with 20% military. Like, it was incredible, bro. And so, I think when the Navy looks at Manning, God bless them for trying. I get it. And look, on my ship, this is where good ships get it right. Good ships, good chiefs messes will figure out how to do it as a team, as a collective. We figured out, do you have to be a DC man to do the H Bluff Daily? No, you do not. You have to be 3M qualified.
Correct.
Good. Let's figure it out. Let's chop it up. Let's figure out ways to share the wealth, share the love. Because the top sniper's like, Gary, I want them to stand watching the pit before you and I have a fight. I'm not the leading DC man, bro. If I was him, you wouldn't win. I'm just telling you. But I'm not him. Right? So you and him got to figure it out. But here's how you can keep me out of the conversation. You guys help them with all their maintenance. You guys help them with all their general quarters drills, all their flying squad drills. And whenever ATG comes on board, they get the same love and support from you as they give you when Mob E comes on board for repair division. You do that, no problem for me, bro. Like, we're a team. And that was exactly what we did. And that's what I love about unit level leadership teams. My favorite organization in the United States Navy is a unit, right? That was a ship, a DDG, an LSD, an LPD, even a carrier, because that mess literally controls their destiny if they take it all on. Now, if they start, well, that's not my job, I'm only going to do this thing, then you guys are going to have hard times, because that's not how it works. There's not enough people to do the thing.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just not. So when you're leaving that ship and you make senior chief on board that ship, right, and you're going to ATG next, what was it about your ATG time that made you decide to drop the command senior chief package?
Funny story. I left the Gary in Yokosuka, and then I went to ATG Detachment Sasebo because it was a cool job. I'd never been to Sasebo. And then in those days they gave AIP. So I was getting $1,700 a month AIP on shore duty. Oh, sign me up, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and so it was during my time there, and then around 2009, I was like, maybe, what is this? In those days, there wasn't a command senior chief rate. It was senior enlisted leader. They were just opened up after a couple of years of putting senior chiefs on platforms. They were going to FFGs, and then they were going to minesweepers and a few other commands.
Yeah.
But to your question of why, I knew I was going to be a mass chief. That's so egotistical. But, I only had 12 years in the Navy when I made senior chief like you. At 15 years, I was eligible. So even the math, I would have to have seriously screwed up or got in trouble or did something very bad to not make mass chief. And I knew that the path to mass chief was going to a carrier, and I was never afraid of it. So I knew that after ATG Sasebo, I had to go to a carrier to make 9. Because historically, if you look at all the 9s in the DC world that made 9, they came from carriers or were successful as a senior chief on a carrier. And I was never on a carrier. But I went to Sasebo, and then people are like, "Hey man, you should check out this command senior chief thing." So I don't know what that is. Bottom line is, I was told by a mass chief that I wouldn't succeed as a command senior chief, that I was too young, and that I would fail to get in the program. Kind of like many other things in my career, telling me what I'm not going to do, what I'm not going to become, just motivated me to say, "Oh, the hell with you, I'm going to give it a shot."
Yeah.
So I put a package together. The package was very different back in those days.
Yeah.
And then Rusty Staub, he was the submarine guy. He was the CTF 76 CMC at the time. And he's the one who called me when that message came out and says, "Hey, congratulations, you were selected for command senior chief." My first look. I don't know why the board selected me, and I don't even know how the process was back then. I don't even remember.
But it was strict. I think it was harder. It was much harder back then. I'll be honest with you guys.
I think it was probably. Oh yeah, I mean, I sat the command senior chief, command CMC board recently, a couple years ago, and Yeah, I can only imagine how it was different back then. It was probably
Much
way
harder.
more scrutinized, to tell you the truth. Yeah, absolutely. Because especially for senior chiefs, right? Because the Navy was still new to this, putting senior chiefs in leadership positions. When they went on a limb to kind of see can senior chiefs do it. And then I remember I called the detailer and he says, "Where do you want to go?" I says, "I want to go on a frigate. I want a challenge. I wanted to leave Japan. I had enough Japan experience, and I told the detailer at the time, put me on a frigate anywhere in the world." And he's like, "I got an idea for you. How about the USS Patriot in Sasebo?" I'm like, "I don't want to stay in Japan, like." And I sure as hell didn't want to go on a minesweeper, a platform I knew nothing about. 100 people didn't seem like at the time a challenge. I wanted to go to a bigger ship. Went to the Patriot. Kind of did what I was told. Um, but the reason why I came a command senior chief, one, it was a challenge. I was pretty like you, egotistically speaking. I thought I was a really good DC man. If you looked at my track record, we did really well on inspections. I knew my rate very well. I quoted the NSTMs, the 555. I loved it. I loved being a DCC and a DCS when ATG would come on board. I never shied away from that, ever. I wanted someone to come on board this shit and tell me where I was wrong. Yeah, good luck with that. And I did take hits. I did, you know.
Yes,
But
I do know.
and I took the hits personal,
Yeah.
not professional. I took it personal. That's how much I love being a DC man. So I knew I was gonna, do well as a DC man.
Yeah.
But I said, I'll give it a shot. 15 years later, here I am. So half of my career, I've been a CMC.
I get it, man. When I look back on my career, so I retired at 25 years, and I went seeing. I was a senior enlisted leader. Like I was at the schoolhouse for DC school, senior enlisted DC schoolhouse, but I was a cell there. But then I went CMC at 18 years, and I was CMC from 2016 till 2022 when I retired. But then, like you, chief in '06, most of my time was I spent most of my career, half my career as a master chief, right? Because I was a master chief for 3 years before I went to CMC. I took that shore duty. I took that knee. I took the strategic knee, and because good for you coming off of a shore duty going into the program, because I feel bad for the guys that go from a ship right into the program, because this is where I'm not really a fan of this new advanced to rate thing, because guys are cooked, man, when they do a good job they get promoted, and now they gotta wait. I feel like the Navy needs to be careful, manage their talent better, because we'll let ourselves get burnt out. And then you get to the end of your career and you'll be like me and be shaking and crap all the time. And you got to take medicine and not shake, right? And it sucks. And it sucks. And that was part of why I chose to retire, because I was like, could I have done 5 more years? Yeah. But where would I have been at the end of that 5 years? And people like me and people like you don't know how to not try our hardest. And that was what
Yeah,
people
even
like
as even I
go
wind
ahead.
down my career now, as I wind
Yeah.
down my career now, there's not an on and off switch on me, like I wish there was, because I have many examples and seen many people in the Navy who are like an on and off switch. I know a lot of CMCs that could turn that thing off and you're like, you know what, I'm retiring in 10 months.
Yeah.
I don't really care. Like, what are they going to do to me kind of mentality. And then there's the flip side of, the CMCs that have done so much and are afraid to let go and is scared to let go. It is a switch, but I think it's been a great ride. And looking back, it's been really interesting, my career or your career, everyone. But everyone that makes a decision and make a choice, um, it's interesting.
It is. It's just, I will tell you that you don't do as much as you've done in your career without having. I mean, you handled it very well. I know that to be true. You had a very good supportive spouse, which is a huge game changer, because not everybody has that blessing. You've been able to have 3 children that all have grown up and are doing well as adults now for the most part, and you're definitely continuing to do it your way, right? But there's also going to be a point where you start to unpack it all, and there's going to be some tough times, right? I just guarantee it, bro, because I believe one of my buddies, he was a retired DC senior chief. He just passed away not even a month ago. He retired right after I retired. Died of a heart attack. You know, our bodies, our minds really go through it through those years of high stress and high op tempo and high worry and frustration. And for me, I really get pissed off when things aren't fair, right? That really bothers me. Like I will fight tooth and nail, not because I want the opportunity, because I want it to be fair for everybody else around me. Otherwise, I feel like it's a rigged deck. And why am I selling this to anyone else to come do this?
Yeah,
Because
I
people,
know. I remember when you were on the staff CMC of Blue Ridge. We won't go into the details of that, but to your point, I remember you calling me and saying, "Kaz, I need advice, or just listen to me vent about some situations you were put in, about some sailors on staff and on the ship command that I, to your point, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about,
yeah,
and sometimes, you know, fair, uh, people look at fair a lot of different ways too, right? Um, what sometimes what's good for the goose isn't good for the gander, but it's all in the eyes of who's seeing it.
I remember. So remember that chief I told you about that threatened to open up that kid's throat? Well, guess what? As I unpacked it, I found that in that department, fraternization was a huge problem. And this chief had had troubles before with these sailors, and they had swept it under the rug. They had kept it inside their own community, inside their own
Sure.
house. So now, of course, that was the group before me because I'm new on board the ship. So I brought my whole mess in. I said, "Look, here's the deal, guys. Just so you know, I only know one way to do this. This is cards face up. So we're all going to play cards face up. And if you can't play like that, you're not going to like being around me because we are doing this for the right reasons all the time. And I'm not going to let people get away with
Yeah.
things. Matter of fact, I'm going to hold you even more accountable if you are a chief petty officer, a senior chief petty officer, master chief petty officer. And you should want me to not let you get away with it because I used to be an engineer or let
Sure.
you get away
Sure.
with it because you eat lunch with me once in a while. No, bro. No, bro. My NC1 when I was on board the ship was convincing junior sailors that in order to get choice orders, they might have to pay sexual favors.
Huh.
That happened. And he was a male and he was corrupting young men, right? And it was a weird space and time, right? For those young men. I'm sure alcohol is involved, parties are involved. And you know how, and here's the thing I had problems. I had heard concerns, but I never had a smoking gun that I could go after them,
Yeah.
right? And this is my command career counselor, bro, that I'm having to manage who like I'm pretty sure every conversation I had, there was a tape recorder in his pocket trying to get me say something that he could try to hold against me because
Yeah.
he would do those things. He would and then share it to the crew. It took a sailor going on a plane ride back to the States on Liberty, having a conversation on the plane with a Navy spouse. That Navy spouse gets that information, tells her husband, who's a chief. He calls me, all I need, I open up the PI, open up the investigation. Before that kid lands, we get him interviewed, and then it all starts coming out in the wash. And I'm just thinking to myself, again, that's that stuff I don't like, bro. Like I don't like it, and I will attack it because I want my sailors to have a fair opportunity to have the best chance to be the best American, the best service member, the best whatever they can feel. And so then when I'm back to that situation that you were just talking about, what I hated was I saw people that I really respected covering it up because they were friends, right? That really bothered me, bro. I remember a guy I really respected went back to the States with his wife to go on travel, and he had younger kids and had that dude living in his house babysitting his kids. And I was like, bro, what are you doing? Like, that's a conflict for me, dog. That's my senior chief. Why is he living in your house, babysitting your kids? Did your wife really need to go with you on that trip? Like, my wife didn't go on trips. I had kids, right? She took
Yeah.
care of my kids. That relationship is more than just professional. And do me a favor, manage that. That's why I'm here to protect you so you can do your job. Let me manage this problem. And then when that came out later and they pulled the Trump card, I was like, okay, that's exactly what's wrong. But oh, by the way, you have a mess full of master chiefs and senior chiefs and chiefs who all know what's right. Right? They all know what's right.
Yeah, you could do a whole other podcast on that, you know. Oh
100%.
yeah.
I'm not gonna get, we can keep going, bro. You and I got those kinds of stories all day long. But I will always applaud the people that do their best to shine a light on those areas and not be afraid to call it out. Just like the Navy's got to do the right thing for Fat Leonard, right? The sailors always know, right?
They do.
Just like the students always know. So
Yeah.
covering it up does nobody assert. It just does a bad thing. It's better to call it out, have it out, and go for it. Trust the process. Good to go. So when you look back at your CMC tours, bro, because the Minesweeper, God, you guys were underway. When you were on the sweepers, they were underway.
Yeah, quite a bit.
Yeah. So how was that? Because where did you go after the Minesweeper? Did you go to Sigonella after the Minesweeper?
No, I went to the Cowpens.
Say, how different was the Minesweeper tour and then the Cowpens tour?
Night and day. Night and day. So
Night and day.
minemen, you know, they're unique individuals. So
Right.
And I was a surface guy, so going back to the surface community, well, the Minesweeper surface community, but you know, it's a smaller surface community. But the Minesweeper was a difficult challenge in itself, working with minemen and just the background and their mission set. And then I went to the Cowpens, but I went to the Cowpens and they just, you know, they recently just fired some commanding officers, so I didn't want to go to the Cowpens either. I wanted to go back to the States, and I was told I'm going to the Cowpens. So, you know, I had some unique challenges on Cowpens too. So, because of the history of the Cowpens, the Hollygraph, and then the next CO got relieved because he was having relationships with another senior officer's wife. So, you know, like Cowpens had a kind of a bad run. And then I got there with the new captain, and then just kind of made it our own. And then I did a hull swap with the Antietam. So the Antietam came out, Cowpens went back to the States. We did a crew swap, actually. Did 3 years between those two ships. Then I went to Italy.
How did you like Italy?
Loved it.
I know
I didn't
you
like
did,
it.
man.
Loved it. I mean, Europe is amazing. And then, you know, it's something unique about getting on a Ryanair flight for $15 and just going all over Europe, you know?
Yeah.
But there's some challenges too, but Europe is a great place. I loved it. My family loved it. Great place.
I remember watching your social media posts when I was in Virginia Beach at the time at the DC school. And I was like, I know Kaz is just living his best life right now. He was
work hard, play hard, man.
You were like the mayor of Sigonella, bro. You were everywhere.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, because we had quite a few 3-4 day weekends. You could just get on the plane and travel. Europe is so easy to travel around because it's all right there. Europe was a great tour.
Yeah. And so after Europe, after Sigonella, what were you hoping to do next, man? You'd been a CMC now on a sweeper. You'd done a cruiser, which was a captain in 06 CO, right? Even though we went from a DDG to an 06, that's not your fault. You still got the experience. Then you go do a forward deployed installation, in my opinion. And an overseas installation is much different than, I believe, a CONUS installation.
Oh, yeah.
Logistic challenges, overseas challenge. Like, there's a lot of different challenges there. So, but in my mind, knowing the CMC community, you've got some pretty good seasoning there, and you're hitting about your 20-year mark probably, right? Because you went command senior chief for what, 12, 13 years?
15.
So you're right over 21 years.
Yeah.
What were you hoping to do next?
I don't know. I actually got a phone call or an email saying, hey, would you be interested in this job? And I said, what's that? And they said it was a job that you did, which was the staff CMC for 7th Fleet. And so, so I actually got an email and I was like, well, they're on the Blue Ridge. Blue Ridge don't get underway that much. And you get CPay. So I was like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. Actually did an interview with the COS. It was weird because normally 06 jobs, you don't get an interview, right? Unless you're on a carrier. Usually the carrier 06 major commands, they interview their CMC. But I interviewed for this job. And I said, yeah, you're the guy. So I went from Sigonella back to Japan. And selfishly, one of the reasons why I really wanted to take that job was because the Blue Ridge went to Liberty Port to Liberty Port to Liberty Port to Liberty Port.
Yeah.
And then now was a good opportunity for me to take my wife with me on these Liberty Ports that she didn't have the opportunity to do from the O'Brien or the Cushing or the Gary or the McCampbell or the Patriot for that matter. And now that my kids were older, I said,
Yeah.
well, now Nikki will just be my Liberty buddy when we hop around all these places.
Yeah.
And that lasted 7 days. So I get to Japan 7 days later, and then still checking in on the Blue Ridge as the first ever staff CMC officially for the 7th Fleet. And then the Fitz happened. So then they redirected me to go to the Fitzgerald because they just relieved the COXO CMC in about 13 people. And Fitz was in really bad shape, real bad shape. And so Toby Howitt, who was the 7th Fleet CMC at the time, pulled me aside and said, hey, we need you to go there for about 2 weeks, just some stability. You got tons of experience, ATG, CMCs, surface experience, and then we'll get a relief in there. Okay, 2 weeks turned into 7 months, man. So then in December of 2017, Susie Whitman at the time was the Fleet Master Chief. She came out to Japan, pulled me aside outside the CPO club. I remember it, and said, "You're not going back to the Blue Ridge," because the Fitzgerald was just on its way. We'll have to take her to Pascagoula, Mississippi to get repaired. And she says, "You're not going back to the staff CMC job. You're going to go stand up this new command." We don't know what it's called yet, but they're standing up the new command here in Japan because of the collision of Fitzgerald and John S. McCain. And so I left that job, checked out of 7th Fleet, and went to Naval Surface Group Western Pacific as the first CMC at that command. And then did that for about 3.5 years, a little longer than I expected. But that was getting it all set up and trying to figure it out. Then I went to Hawaii and MidPac, and then from MidPac here to CNFJ.
Yeah. Looking back at that whole transition, man, what did you think about the ability for another Master Chief to pull those levers to move your life around, to change your situation? Do you think that's how it should go?
You know, that's a tough question to answer. I will tell you this, looking back in those times, I wish I had the ability to say no. And at the time, I didn't feel like I had the ability to push back. I have always tried to, anyway, respect those that are senior to me. And so that's the Navy I came up with, in 1995 when I joined. So when a Fleet Master Chief pulls you aside and tells you, this is what I need you to do, you just did it. Maybe you could call that a weakness on me. I don't know. Hindsight being 2020. I enjoyed my time at Naval Surface Group Western Pacific, but I also look back on that time and say, I wish I would have had a say in that. Because I'm a little upset in the fact that I feel like, and this is just a feeling, right? Not a discredit towards the military. I felt like, well, the Navy, you owe me $37,500. That's how much CPay you took from me on a 3-year tour, maxed out on CPay. Some people could say, hey, man, you don't do it for the money, blah, 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 blah. When you look at my time on Fitzgerald and then going to this new command, Surface Cruise Westpac, I kind of feel like, I really truly feel like it changed my projectile of my career.
Yeah.
It did. And some people will disagree with that. I'll say, no, I really disagree with that.
I agree.
And
I agree, guys.
I don't have any regret. It was an honor and a privilege to be able to lead those sailors after the collision at Fitzgerald. People that I'm lifelong friends with today. I don't know. But I will tell you is that I think it changed my projection. I am not upset. I am very happily retiring next year after 31 years. And that is a choice to a degree. But when I look back, I will tell you this. The jobs that I was asked to do, the hard jobs, James Osborne was the detailer at the time. They sent me to Fitz. They keep me on Fitz. I like to think I was doing well enough that they didn't find a relief, but they felt confident that I can get that ship to Pascagoula. And then Naval Surface Group Western Pacific. I do know there was a vetting order. There was a list of CMCs that they wanted with qualifications. Apparently, I came out on top with my background. But I will say that it didn't really pay off in the future, if that makes any sense, in my opinion. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a flag CMC. Then that's a whole different discussion, maybe a different podcast later down the career. But um, I kind of I had a lot of respect for Susie Whitman. I still do. She was in a tough position, a hard position as a fleet master chief. But I was also raised that I'm not going to say I'm not doing that.
Yep.
And then telling the senior CMC what I'm not going to do wouldn't have gone well for the remainder of my career anyway. So I was of the mindset, well, we'll go figure out what naval surface group, whatever this thing is, and go do my best at it.
Yeah.
But selfishly, I feel like, the Navy, I chose orders. I didn't get fired. I didn't have a EFMP issue. I didn't have a spouse issue. I didn't have a FAP issue.
Yep.
I was doing really good as a CMC, and then
Yep.
you took it away from me. And the people that say it's not about the money, they better go look themselves in the mirror. I will tell you, one of the reasons why I wanted that job was the Brewers didn't get on the way that much. One, I was the opportunity to go to Liberty Ports with my bride. Three, I was making CPay.
Yep.
So to a degree, yeah, man, it is a little bit about the money.
Yep.
It absolutely is. And
I get it, bro.
so in hindsight, it is what it is. I don't have any negative feelings. I'm not going to
So
look back on my career and say, wish I could have, should have did it, because it's over and
here's
done.
here's why I asked you that question, because you and I were both in that same conversation, right? Matter of fact, you were with the CMC that day. You guys walk on board my ship to come talk to me about coming to backfill you on 7th Fleet staff, right? And I was on the end of a 6-month deployment, right? Like I had not been home for 4.5 months, and I was going to be in Yoko for another month doing an availability, doing training.
Sure.
And here comes this conversation of we need you to move to Yokosuka in like 8 weeks. Like, okay, I've been gone for 6 months on deployment. My wife is very happy in Sasebo. She has a great community there. My kids are thriving there. It's the holiday time period. And you want me to pack up my family as soon as I get home to come to Yokosuka to be this 7th Fleet Staff CMC, which, okay, why? I never wanted a job like that. I don't want to be that guy. I'm happy where I'm at, and I got plans on Ash, right? But it's an honor, right?
It's an honor to get the phone call.
You feel like it's an honor, right?
Right.
And he came with you, who we had never met in person, but I trusted you. I knew you, right? And he was my former ISIC CMC who had been with me through some very hard times with like my command. So I would call him. So two dudes I respect a lot. And then, oh, by the way, there's this whole Susie Whitman conversation, blah, blah, blah. So I'm young, I'm wide-eyed, 18 years as a Master Chief, 2 years as a CMC, and I'm done on Ashland, bro. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't. Ashland was done. I did it all. It was done. I was done. Like a good CMC can be done in 2 years, I believe, and they can move on. Because if they do it right, that command will be good, and you get some fresh blood in there, keep it going. I was done. So I'd already been kind of praying to God to give me another opportunity because I knew I was done.
Yeah.
And so when that walked in the door, I was like, well, I kind of want to be an aircraft carrier CMC. So I know how to embark Marines. I wanted to go to an aviation squadron next to learn how to be embarked on board a ship. I'll just go to be staff and I'll learn how to be embarked on board a ship. But being embarked on board a flagship is a lot different than being embarked as an air wing, right? Like, and then there's all that drama and all that inbredness and all that crap that goes on there. So, but that's where I first saw Master Chiefs changing other Master Chiefs' careers. And at first, I was in. I'm in. Like, I'm in. Like, we know what we're doing. We're freaking awesome.
Yeah.
We know what we're doing, right? And then I get done with 7th Fleet and all my crap there. And I worked Guam on my own, bro. No one knew how I got Guam. No one knew how I got Guam, bro, because I networked it. I pulled the rabbit out of the hat, bro. I didn't get no help from nobody. I was in Hawaii with my wife in the hospital. I'm working with Jim Hone on the phone. I'm working with Lisa Tisdale on the phone. And all they're saying, I'm arguing with Izzy because Izzy's the detail at the time. And Izzy's like, no, Gary, screw them. Screw them. They can't do that to you, bro. Go back there and make it do an IG. Go back there and make them pay for this, right?
Yeah, I
Now,
know your story very well, and
I'm getting that energy, right? I'm
yeah,
getting that energy, but I'm a team guy. I'm a company man, right? I'm struggling with it because I'm a company man. And once I was able to, and Jim was my ISIC. He was on my next tier up. So even though he was at the Pack Fleet level at the time, he was my immediate next guy up the chain of command when it comes to the Mass Chief thing. So I think he knew it was in all of our best interest to make this Guam thing work out. And nobody wants Guam anyway. Let's be honest. Like no one's jumping out of their chair to go to Naval Base Guam.
yeah,
And my wife, for whatever her reasons, was open to it. So I did that. And I made the problem go away. I took my medicine and I just tried my best to get out of there, right? And that's another story for another time. But then I'm in Guam, right? And arguably have a great tour. Kick ass, take names until the new change of command comes around. And I got this new weak flag CMC who doesn't like me because he thinks he's a flag CMC. And I'm like, bro, I don't care, dog. Like, not too long ago, I was sitting back in that other room with all these other dudes, and guess what? I'm not that guy. I don't care to be one of the, nothing against that community. I'm not all the way in anymore, right? I've learned some stuff. I had a little more wisdom, right? And I'm open to take care of my family a little bit more as a priority, vice just swinging at every pitch, right? I'm no longer swinging at every pitch anymore. I'm thinking about my family at this point. And I get a phone call, and they say, "Hey, Gary, we really want you to go to Naval Hospital Guam. That's opening up. The whole community loves you. We want you to stay on Guam. We hear that you're thinking about retirement. What do you think going to Naval Hospital Guam?" Like, yeah, you know what? Sure. My wife likes Guam. My kids like Guam. I love Guam. I would do Naval Hospital Guam. Sure. And then a Master Chief in the CNIC community says, no way. No way will I ever allow him to leave that place early. We need him for all 3 years. And I said, no. Flag on the play, bro. Flag on the play, bro. First, they called me. I didn't call them.
sure.
Secondly, I got a change of command coming. I don't want to deal with all that crap. I can already read the tea leaves. Why? This is now my third tour as a CMC. And again, I'm done. I got an MSM already for COVID response. I don't give a crap about anything else, right? I didn't do any of it for the trophy. I did it because I was on deck. And oh, by the way, everyone kept telling me the whole time, thank God you're there, Gary, that you're the perfect guy for that job. Because it was work, bro.
Yeah.
Hard times. And now I got this phone call. I got all these higher level people saying I'm the guy, but one guy can stop this from happening. And you don't even want to hear my perspective just because you don't want to backfill the billet for someone else. Cool, bro. I'm retiring, dog. I'm not playing these games anymore. And I remember I got on the phone with the guy that does the flag boards. Gary, what are you doing dropping papers? You're going to be coming up for this next board, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
I said, brother, not for nothing, man. I made Senior Chief young. I made Master Chief young. I'm past the point where I'm going to let another E9 determine what's going to happen to my family anymore, right? Like, I feel like if it was the old way where I could throw my name in the hat for a job and then I got picked by that boss because I was the best guy for the job based off the interview, that's fair for me. Not a bunch of these freaking dudes that have no clue what we do, determining what's going to happen, and then giving the boss only two choices of people that they think is the best fit. And they don't even want that job, bro. They don't even want that job.
Yeah, again, we can have another podcast about that. You should have.
But that's why I retired, right? And because also I'm like, all right, my oldest son's about to be ninth grade.
Yeah.
I'm gone, bro. And then not to mention I had an investigation open on me, Mike, for like 11 months, bro. 11. Who does that to somebody? And not even a real investigation, bro. I got interviewed one time, like 9 months before that. My CO never got talked to. My XO never got talked to, right? And they kept me in the seat for the whole time. I remember laughing, bro, at the Chiefs Club. I'd be laughing, like, bro, you these, and where I come from, if there's a problem with someone, you're not going to be in the seat because your mental health matters to us,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
we
yeah.
want to make sure that you get the chance to have a fair and due process. I remember asking my CEO, like, sir, I called the flag master chief up. I was like, bro, what's stopping me from just going into the hospital right now and just tap it out, dog? Oh, Gary, please don't do that. Oh, I'm not gonna do that, bro, because I'm not a punk. But they didn't know I was already thinking about hurting myself because I couldn't hurt them. Right? I was that guy. I was like, I could drive up that hill and grab that dude by the collar and just go to work. And now what? You know what I'm saying? Like I was
Yeah,
struggling, bro, because my wife was dealing with that, my kids were dealing with that, and none of that would even been a thing if that one master chief hadn't inserted himself in my family business or in my business and just said, "That's awesome, Gary. I'm glad you got the opportunity, bro. Good for you." Next,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like
It's interesting. I know
that's
that
my problem.
story.
That's my problem, right?
Yeah, there are
And then
too
like,
many people, I think, in the position of influence, specifically in the senior enlisted world, that in my personal opinion shouldn't have the position of influence.
they
You know, we're
shouldn't.
not naval officers, man. You know, we're enlisted leaders responsible for deck plate enforcement, advising our commanders on the health, the morale, and the well-being of our sailors,
Yep.
officers included, of course. But then, you know, you could talk about influence and power all day long. And the senior you get in the Navy, whether, you know, and then we throw titles around, man. And we love titles in the Navy: Force Master Chief, Fleet Master Chief. We are very title driven in the military. And sometimes those titles, people have egos that
Yeah.
write checks that they can't cash. And because they have a title behind their name, they are in position of influence and power. To your point, influencing and having power over people's careers that they know nothing about, or hear second or third, fourth things. It's interesting, man.
It's sad, bro. And I don't know enough about the other branches to hear how they manage their talent pool. Because here's the other thing, right? I believe the senior enlisted leaders in the United States Navy are done a disservice because our bonuses should be equivalent to a department head bonus. Period. Stop. $100,000 bonus for a surface warfare department head, right?
It's more than
What is
that.
exactly, exactly. Meanwhile, you never get a down tour. Everywhere you go, you're in the triad.
Yeah, you
Everywhere you
know,
go,
when I was at Sigonella, there was a fleet master chief that came to town. I won't mention her name, but uh, you know,
I know what you're talking about.
she came to town, and I pulled her aside and I says, "Hey, is there any way we can get a pay raise at CMC's?" And I got you know, dressed down, you know, and I was like, what in the hell just happened? Like,
Yep.
we don't do this for the money. We do this blah 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 blah. And I'm just like, huh? Like, hold on a sec. First of all, I'm not a first tour CMC. Second of all, why do they treat the command master chief with so much respect, but the pay doesn't match the responsibility and the job that we do? That's something I could never figure out. I will tell you, the last year or two, there's some talk in the flag mess of them trying to increase the monetary amount a command master chief gets based on the position you are. This is only talk, and so um, it. We are there before, we're there after, and we're advising our commanders, and to a degree, some of us admirals, a very senior leader, you know, senior issues, and
Well,
you
it's
get
not like
pro
that.
pay for a flag. Like for me, 225. Then they tax it. Yeah, great. So I'm
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
175. Um,
But and you get increased scrutiny, and you get
oh
increased
yeah,
legal trauma. And here's the thing: I'm not even so much worried about like the second, third, and fourth tours. I'm just thinking about those people going out to their first ship and the hours they're gonna put in, the stress. You know, like bro, my CEO and I would walk off the ship together, and it was just it's a lot. And I think that especially seeing what it's like in the civilian world when it comes to compensation for what people really do and the value that we bring. And oh, by the way, the majority of us are now educated by a piece of paper.
sure.
Well, by the way, because a piece of paper don't mean crap. right? Like I'm still not a fan of colleges. I
Sure.
only did it because that's what they said I had to do to promote. So I went and got my education. It wasn't because I wanted to go to school. Because like you, I did not like school. I'm not there to dropped out of high school at 15. I got my GED before I joined the Navy. Like I did not do any of the
Sure.
education because I was passionate about education. I did it because they said I had to do it to promote. But I look at that. I think that there's two things that they're doing wrong when it comes to that senior list leader space. Number one, the detailing I think is I'm not a fan of it. Just put that out there. And that's one reason why I walked away. Besides the fact that you can you can have mean people be in situations of opportunity and nothing can stop them, right? And everyone that I talked to, because again, I was talking to people, Gary, you should call IG. Gary, you should again, it took me years after retirement, bro, to even want to even start talking about it because I was so jacked up in the head.
Sure.
So jacked up in the head because I remember that time when the Admiral Aquilino started yelling at me that one time in that meeting that we were at in Hawaii,
Yep.
right? Because I just said, sir, what you're saying resonates with me. I'm inspired to hear that. We need to hear that kind of conversation more on the deck plates, not freaking transgender crap or not whatever. We need to hear what you're saying. And he got so pissed off at me, right? Lights me up because Matt Chief, what do I have you for if I got to say it, right? And then what was the worst part after that was some of those other guys were like, oh, Gary, we don't do those things when we come here. We just whisper. We only talk in between the meetings. We only come here to talk about things behind closed doors. And I was just
Yeah.
like, bro, you could have left me home. Like I come here as a master chief, again, damage controlman, a dude that wants to do the work. I'm not afraid to having a conflict. We're getting briefed on things that even to this day is causing problems in the Navy. And even then, I was like, why are we doing that? Why?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna shut up now because my wife didn't come with me, so I'm not cool enough to have a spouse that travels because my kids are little, right? But if this is what I have to look up to go forward, and what's funny is several of those gentlemen are my friends personally, but in that moment, I was getting like,
Crazy.
and then I had to talk to Toby and like apologize for making Seventh Fleet look bad. Like, as I look back on my life, I'm like, no, he asked Master Chief's question, and I literally had a question. And all these dudes in the
Yeah.
room were just like, no, no. And what I will tell you in the civilian sector, you have the exact same problem. And when people start thinking that their position is more important than the organization or that their backroom conversation is what's really going on, it's unfortunately toxic,
Yeah.
right? And I remember talking to the guy for the flag boards. I was telling him all this. I'm like, bro, this is why I'm retiring. Just give him one chance, Gary. You might get the bro. No, because all it takes is one guy at that board to say no, and they're all going to say okay because we agree because this guy has a certain position or whatever it is, and he gets to choose that I got to go do more time, something else, and the boss has no clue. The boss wants me there at that job. That
Sure. Sure.
captain said, I want that master chief from the base because he's freaking awesome. And
It's
that boss,
interesting.
yeah, it's interesting. All right, man, we're gonna land this plane, bro, because we could again, like you said, whole other podcast, bro.
Yeah. I hope they get an opportunity to do it again with you.
Oh, for
Share
sure.
some sea stories, and even more importantly, November 3rd of 2026 would be a great time to talk to when I'm officially retired from the Navy, and I could share some interesting things too. Not in the
You know,
business to hurt anybody, not in the
yeah.
business to call anybody out, but just share some experiences to some of your earlier points that having some interesting conversation. You and I share a lot of the same thing, but what an honor and privilege to chat with you, buddy.
Well, hold on. We're gonna wrap it up here. I gotta ask you some fast questions, and I'm gonna add you to my list of guys who all want to wait until they're retired to talk. Trust me. And
Happy to do it.
and like you, I'm not trying to cause problems for no one, but the sailors always know, right? The other people,
I agree, and
you know
the
what the
Navy's
CSP,
not perfect. Civilians aren't perfect, but
no, I'm
Yeah,
praying it gets, I'm praying it gets
whoever,
better.
somebody might watch this and be like, wow, they do that in the Navy, or you know what, this is exactly what I want to do in the Navy. But
Yeah.
sometimes you gotta call that duck out every once in a while.
So before I went to Ashland, I went to Surfland because I was in Virginia, and I sat down with every CMC that was on the staff that had gotten fired, right? And I talked to all of them. And that was an interesting time. And so when I look back on my career, it's like, Gary, you knew what you signed up for, bro. Don't act like you didn't know.
Yeah,
Just,
yeah.
just, I had hope, right? It's like you're that person in that toxic relationship and you think you can change it, right? I, they'll love me, right? Like, all right, here we go, bro.
Okay,
Cass, do you have a moment that you was like, oh my God, I'm really in the Navy? Like, what was your first welcome to the Navy moment?
June 7th, 1995, standing at attention and was told not to stand on that flag at welcome to boot camp. That to be honest with you, that was the moment.
Awesome. I get it, brother. Hey, looking back through your career, what do you think is the most common leadership challenge that you've seen facing all your different organizations? Has there been like one or two common threads?
I'd say the biggest leadership challenge that I certainly have faced is uh, is the Chiefs mess. And from a command master chief's perspective of 15, 16 years of doing this, is I will tell you the hardest leadership challenge I ever did was a Chiefs mess. And I'm not saying that as a negative thing. What I'm telling you is, as you know, Chiefs
Yep.
messes, there's something that happens to a human, male or female, when they go through that initiation, selection, transition process. And what they're told for 6, 7 weeks, and then they enter a mess. And everyone in the mess had been entered into the mess at different times or stages in their life. And they come with different backgrounds, different pedigrees, different thoughts, different experiences. And try to lead that group with so many different thoughts, so many different types of backgrounds, experiences is challenging.
Yep. 100%. And not every mess is the same, right?
Correct.
100%. All right, dude, you've raised three strong young Americans. And I just would like to know because a lot of my students watch these podcasts, my families, my parents, and then my community. I'm blessed to be in a community that doesn't have a lot of, 2 hours away seems like a longer way, farther away than what it is. Um, what's a good leadership piece of advice you'd give to parents that are raising teens?
Good. Ooh. So I will tell you, there's three things that resonated with me since my time on the Antietam. When I One of my COs was a guy by the name of Michael McCartney, and Captain McCartney's now retired, and he was a Stockdale Leadership Award winner. And I really enjoyed working for him. He is an unbelievable leader, but he taught me three things. And I share this with you because I talk about it quite a bit since I learned it in 2000, in 13, 2014 from Cap Mike McCartney. And I've taught my kids this well. And so if you ask any three of my kids, they would tell you this, and they'll probably laugh at it. But, three things: lead yourself exceptionally well, create opportunities for others to succeed, and have a positive attitude. If you can do those three things and you can instill those three things in the future generation, lead yourself exceptionally well, create opportunities for others to succeed. It's a big thing to give back to people, and it's not about us. I tell people, you have to be able to create something for somebody else to do. The payback is always tenfold. And then the third thing is having a positive attitude. There are people that have it way worse than some of the people we know. And then it's not, sometimes it is a little, the grass is green on the other side, but having a positive attitude, I think, makes you smarter, brighter, better, and puts you through adversity a little bit better. So I would sum it up to creating opportunities for others to succeed, lead yourself exceptionally well, and have a positive attitude.
Good to go. That's great. What's a piece of advice you would give to somebody who's struggling within an organization from some of these challenges that we've talked about, right? They feel like it's not fair, or they feel like something's not going the right way, and they don't know what they're going to do. Or they could be a young second class, right? And they felt like they didn't get the eval they were supposed to get, whatever, right?
Seek a mentor. I will tell you this, that We use that word mentor in the Navy. Very interesting. I remember when we were forced to have a mentor in the Navy, there was a
For real.
mentorship instruction in the Navy. They
Yeah.
got rid of the mentorship instruction. But whether you're a civilian or you're active duty, find somebody you can call to vent, someone that you trust, someone that you respect. And at the same time, be open and mindful to listen to the feedback because you might not like the feedback. You may not resonate with the feedback. But if you really trust the other person, I think I've had a couple of good mentors in my career. Rich Hatton's one of them. I've had a couple of them, James Osborne, a couple of them that I know that if I call, they're going to give it to me the way straightforward. I'm very fortunate that I'm a mentor to a couple of people too. And you know me to be a very straightforward person. Many people that know Mike Kazabowski, I'm very straightforward. To your point earlier, that rubs people the wrong way. But it's not that I want to rub you the wrong way. If you ask me a question, I'm going to give you an answer. It doesn't mean you're going to like the answer, but at
Yeah.
least be willing to hear the answer. You have to think and look differently sometimes. We as human beings look at things a certain way, right? We want the world to work the way we want the world to work. Unfortunately, the world doesn't work the way we want it to work. So having somebody's difference of opinion and then being able to respect that opinion and look at things a different side, I think having a mentor was one of the greatest things I did in the Navy.
No, for sure, man. And I'll tell you, like, when it comes to James or you, or one of the things I do love about our Navy's culture is that rates are they are so similar,
They
right? So
are.
I could be almost in the same room with any other DC mash chief or DC man, period, and probably connect if we can get past the bravado over who's the best firefighter or whatever it is, right? But once we get past that part, the connection is there. And James was also a good voice advice point for me. And I'll tell you, you've done me a solid as well, not just through my own career, but my guy Jeff Brooks has been with you there in Yokosuka, and he's gone through a very interesting run there. And
Sure.
him and I were talking. We were talking the other day filming one of these, and he was telling me that you and him had connected. And I was like, "Oh yeah, Kaz is solid, bro." And I could see you and him connecting, right, for sure. And him
Yeah.
appreciating that relationship, that
Yeah, it's
mentorship.
great to hear.
Yeah, yeah. He definitely speaks highly of you. All right, here we go. Next up, this is a little more fun, not so deep. It's Saturday night. You're on the ship. You want pizza or wings?
Wings,
Wings? Okay, got it. All right, brother. I got either the birthing cleaner or the worker party. Which one do you want?
working party,
Yeah, baby. Let's go. All right, we're gonna watch a movie in the mess. It's either gonna be De Niro or Pacino. What do you think?
De Niro.
De Niro. Okay. Looking back on your career, brother, what was your favorite duty station?
Favorite duty station. Duty station or duty type?
Up to you.
My favorite duty station, I think, was Europe in Italy. I've been in Japan a long time, as you know, 8 ships in Japan, 4s in CMC, but my favorite duty station was Europe. To be able to unwind and travel Europe, I think was a very phenomenal, rewarding tour for us.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, for you, for real. All right, looking back on your career, what was your favorite Liberty port?
Favorite Liberty port, um, Australia,
Yeah. Where'd you go in Australia? Brisbane, Perth?
Perth, Darwin, Hobart, and Fremantle.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Looking back on your career, what was the hardest qualification you ever had to earn?
Yeah,
Yeah, yes, sir. All right. If you had the chance to do it again, would you recommend somebody goes overseas or stateside?
overseas.
Yes, sir.
I'm partisan of that because I've done most of my career overseas. But my only plug for overseas is you're operationally deployed all the time. And if you want to be a subject matter expert in your rate, the advancement rates do not lie. Sailors who are stationed overseas typically advance quicker and faster than those stateside.
Fact. All right. Looking at life, what's your favorite movie series? Not a trilogy, but a series. Favorite movie series.
Favorite, Godfather,
Ooh, good one. I like it. All right. Would you rather be independent, Kaz, or on a team?
team.
All right. I think I already got your personal leadership philosophy from you. Is that what you said about what you told your kids?
Yeah.
Got it. All right. So we've got deck plate leadership, institutional technical expertise, professionalism, character, loyalty, active communication, and sense of heritage. These are principles that I use to train chief petty officers, and I love them, and I still apply them to this day, even in my own life. Out of those guiding principles, which one is your favorite?
Loyalty.
Simple and plain. All right, Cass, would you rather lead or follow?
A little bit of both, if I could answer it like that.
Roger, it's situational dependent. Okay, that's it, bro. Do you have any save rounds or alibis?
I know it's been an honor and privilege to catch up with you, my friend. As soon as we started talking, I remember that email I sent you that long. In fact, it kind of makes me, after we hang up, want me to scroll back up to many years ago into the conversation, the messenger, me begging you to not go command mass chief. I just sat your board. We selected you to be a mass chief as a damage patrolman at sea. And you did what Gary Wise did not take my advice, and he became a phenomenal command master chief. But that being said, what an honor and privilege to chat with you and see you again, my friend. And I look forward to doing it again in the future for sure.
For sure, man. Definitely. And keep me posted. If you have any questions about the whole transition thing, right? Kaz, man, I will tell you, as much as I love being a sailor, and I really did. I love being a Navy chief all day, every day. Would do it again. Man, it's fun on this side.
I'm very excited. I can't wait.
Yeah, just having it over with, bro. Just getting through it, and the pressure's no longer there. You know
Absolutely.
Yep. All right, bro. Hey, everyone listening to the sounds of our voice, hopefully you enjoyed this conversation. You might have to pause it a few times because we went in, but it's okay. That's what happens when you get D-Seaman together. We talk, man. That's what we do. All right, Kaz, it's good talking to you, bro. See you later, man.
Likewise. Thanks. Be good, my friend.
And I know I was born for this. I know I was born for this. Don't care for the critics, my words are like physics, a force that they can't stop. They just don't get it, I think they forget I'm not done till I'm on top. I know